Well, hello there, friends, and welcome back to the podcast. My name's Levi.
I'm Jennie.
I'm Olivia.
And we are the Luskos.
We are some of the Luskos.
Hey, it's the Luskos.
Hey, it's Luskos. And it's Father's Day week, everybody. It's a beautiful week. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Happy Father's Day to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I wasn't fishing for compliments, I promise. But thank you. You are my offspring.
You're a good father.
Yeah.
It's who I am.
Oh,
It's a good father.
heresy.
Heresy? I hope not. I hope I'm a good father with a little f, right? Not the father, father.
You're a
You are a
good
father.
Because he said, if you being evil, know how to give good gifts to your kids. Hey, I'm a good gift giver.
But
that
evil
is true.
rearranged is Levi.
If you're a Levi father and you know how to give good gifts to your children.
You are a Levi father and you do give good gifts.
You do.
Okay,
You are a
what's
good
your favorite
giver.
gift I've ever given you besides life?
I'm going to try not to think about that. But I think
And I'm going to do the exact opposite and try and think about that.
But I always think of ew. One year for Christmas you got me a one wheel, and I ripped that thing around everywhere.
You were
sure
so good
did.
on that thing.
You were confident. You
And then-
flew that sucker
I
around, and
loved
you
that.
ate it pretty good once, didn't you?
A couple times, yeah. But I got back on, and I loved it, and I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay, now what about a memory of your father that you have?
Great question. As
So
opposed to
many.
the memories of your father you don't have. We're glad we got that distinction out there for you, Liv.
Well, a clear one is forever. I was probably like 6 or 7, and we were at Costco, and we were in the food court, and I was swinging on 2 tables, and then I smacked forward, split my chin open. There was blood everywhere, and I was kind of in and out of it. I remember kind of waking up, and I looked up, and you were holding me, and you were kind of like cradling me, running across the parking lot to an urgent care. I don't know. That was just
Yeah, I was all
Swooped me
reflex. I scooped you up and ran out.
Yeah.
And then they glued your
they
chin
glued
shut.
it, and I asked for purple.
Because they gave you a choice
They
of
gave
colors.
me a choice between clear, pink, I asked for pink, and then they said, no, we don't have pink, but you could have purple. And I was like, oh, I love purple. So I had this huge purple scar.
It's kind of a funny thing to get a color choice of, like braces colors,
But
it's like,
a glue.
what color glue would you like on the bottom of your chin, little girl?
I thought purple was a great choice. So they glued
And they
me
glued
up.
your shut, and you still got a little scar. I
I
can
do.
see it
You
right
have a cute
there.
little scar. It's true.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So I always think of that.
Wow.
But there's a lot of good memories too. Oh, another one. We were at, I think, VU conference, and Pastor Tim Ross was in front of us. And at one point, you just felt the Lord speak to you to walk over to him and pray for him. And that, to me, meant a lot because it was just so inspiring to see someone, my dad, you, walk up to someone and just pray for them. It was a beautiful moment.
Oh, sweetheart. That's so amazing. Well, I've loved being your dad. You, out of all of our kids, you turned us both into parents, So the day that you were born, of course, I remember hearing your ultrasound, hearing your heartbeat for the first time. That really made it real for me when I first heard your ultrasound. It's like, that's what heart sound like through water.
That?
No, but that's kind of right?
It's true.
Just like
I think
sloshy.
he does practice that in the mirror.
In the mirror? I can't even see myself. Why would I do that in the mirror? I would need headphones.
It's really good.
And then I also remember the
Very
day your
lifelike.
mom called me on my flip phone and said, I'm pregnant.
Weren't you in a meeting?
I was in a parking lot. And I was like, oh my gosh. Okay. Because we had said, hey, let's wait 5 years. We'd only been married a few months, and 3 months.
8 months.
8 months. It felt like 3 because it was such love I had for you. The time flew. 8 to 3, like not even like a real long run. Like it felt like 5 years. That 8 months felt like 3. I loved you so. Like how Jacob loved Rachel, so serving 7 additional years felt like a few days. That's what I meant for that to come across like.
It came across
Just went
that
from
way.
8 to 3 months.
But your mom calls me on the phone and says, hey, that 5-year plan for having a baby, well, I am pregnant. And I remember like shutting my phone and like walking nervously into a meeting and like trying to keep my composure. But yeah, that was you.
And that's like such a picture of how we didn't know what we were doing. Because nowadays it's like people have huge parties saying,
I'm pregnant.
I'm pregnant.
Is that true?
Oh, I don't know. They have a party for everything.
Like a reveal kind of a thing or whatever?
Yeah. Or they'll give little baby shoes to match the dad's shoes. It's really cute.
Oh, see, like a cute
like really creative and like intentional. And here I am like, oh my gosh, I'm pregnant. I need to call him.
You know what's weird? I was wearing capri pants. I remember it was like a weird season I went through where like I had seen these capri pants at the Gap, and I was like, you know what? I think I'm the kind of guy who can rock that. It was a huge mistake, you know. I want to take that season back in my fashion life. I think I had bleached hair and I wore capri pants.
You had earrings.
You know, but I didn't call them capris. You know what I called them? Cropped pants. I felt better about that.
But I feel like you wear cropped pants now. They're just longer cropped pants.
No,
capris are like mid-calf.
What I do now is like I get my tailor to take my suit pants up so I can flash a little ankle. You know, it's
too far.
It's a bold move.
That's too far.
Yeah, well, I did get that letter one time from that woman who watched our TV program, and she said that she was a little stumbled by how much ankle I had been showing on one particular broadcast. I was horrified.
You really held on to that compliment.
It was the one compliment that I keep coming back to.
Because of the other guy who was like, man, you really need to put some lotion on your knees.
Oh, that was a really low moment for me. Why would you bring that up? I was when Clover and I went to Disneyland and we saw Mickey Mouse and Clover was like, Dad, let's get a photo with Mickey. And I was like, oh, sweetheart, let's do it. And then when I looked at the photo later, I was like, wow, those are some ashy knees. You know, you don't want to have some ashy knee. You want to hydrate the knees aggressively.
And so you do.
Well, no, I didn't because I don't know if we had been up early for the rope drop or something that day. And I hesitated to post a photo. Because I was like, these are some ashy knees. But I was like, dude, look how cute Clover looks. It was like, I don't know, Clover's birthday or something like that. And I had that photo. I was like, I'm going to post this photo of me and Clover and Mickey. And literally all the comments were so aggressively mean about my knees.
That's wrong.
Give that man some Lubriderm, you know, stuff like that. And I was like, it was a very sore subject for me.
Sorry for bringing it up.
But to this day, man, if I'm showing my ankles, I make sure they're nice and moist, you know, have to get
ashy ankles.
I don't want ashy ankles. I don't want ashy anything. I put lotion on today coming out here because I was like, I just have a real sensitive, it's dry air in mountains.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Big problem. Okay, so Father's Day.
I would say I love having gotten to witness you being a dad for these 18 years. I love how you are so like, well, you're just driven to do adventurous things and fun things, but I love how you bring our kids into the mess and chaos of that, like bringing them into doing fun things and getting outside and making memories and doing things that even sometimes like you'll push them a little bit, but for the most part, they thank you so much afterwards.
It really backfired once with Daisy. You think what I'm thinking? Remember when I made her go down that roller coaster?
Yes.
You know, you always think it's a baby bird syndrome. You're going to push them out of the nest. They're going to learn to fly, and they're going to look back up to their daddy bird and go, I loved that. Thank you, Dad. And I feel like that's happened a lot.
I'm free.
You know, first time we brought you into the podcast studios, terror and then euphoria. Same with preaching and lots of different moments. But man, with Daisy one time, I think she held that grudge for like 6 months. You made me go down that roller coaster
longer.
And I hated it.
Because a year later we went back and she was still like
traumatized.
Oh, I'm not going on that ride.
It wasn't like a terribly scary roller coaster. It was like Chip and Dale's rescue coaster or something like that. You know, it wasn't like the Flight of Passage from Avatar. So I thought she was going to love it. So I made her do it. And man, if there was a human being that ever shot daggers out of their eyeballs that stabbed you into your kidneys over and over again.
Oh, no.
No, that girl, you don't want to mess with Daisy.
But with that said, I feel like for the most part, you are really good at pushing them to a good point, like pushing them out of their comfort zone to do something new and different and really helping them grow and being brave. And so that's something that I'm thankful for you, actually, in my life also, but watching you in our kids' lives, I love that.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, so anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, this is a special around the subject of fatherhood. And so we're going to be talking about that some. And from our own reflections, broken, painful, fresh grief, all of it. But then, of course, there's the joy and privilege of being dad. Thank you for those kind words. If you know someone who this conversation could be encouragement to. Think about it, send it to him. But I do want to say, while we have you here for a moment, congratulations. Big year for you. Little Miss turned 18, graduated high school, had an incredible tennis career,
Seriously.
headed off to college shortly, just got back literally from your graduation trip, feeling the jet lag from the Africa extravaganza. Got to safari in South Africa. Very exciting. So congrats.
Oh, well, thank you. Congrats to you guys for bringing me here. I don't know.
You're so grown up.
It's a weird, I feel like a tween again because I'm in between the students and I'm also in between the adults. And I never thought I would do that again, but here I am. But it's also exciting.
Well, legally on paper, you're an adult.
I am, but emotionally and mentally, I'm not.
Well, soak it up and enjoy it. This last summer is your final kind of space before you voyage off to college, and we're just Mom and I are both so proud of you. Mom's literally dropping things. She's so excited.
I really am so excited for you.
Right? I mean, to see you spread your wings and go off into all that God has for you, it's amazing. And so many of our friends have kids like our younger kids' ages. So I know that I've heard a million people talk about what an old soul you are and how wise beyond your years you are and how encouraging and how much excitement and hope you give to so many of our friends who are like, man, it's exciting to see the potential for, because what I always say is the kids don't need a friend, they need parents. But then to watch you grow into a place of being genuinely one of our friends is really thrilling. So I love our friendship. And
me too. It's fun because we've always had that friendship, like you said, but you're still my parents and the people telling me what to do. And but it is, like you said, it's fun to, as I've gotten older, become more friendship based in our dealings.
In our dealings. What a funny way to describe it. Like shady stuff in an alley in our drug deals and stuff,
Wow.
No, but I appreciate you guys both so much. And I was driving with Mom the other day and I was like, Mom, you're my best friend right now. And hopefully forever.
Pinky promise. Wow. That's solidarity. That's disturbing. It just happened. That's witchcraft right there.
It's not.
It's nice.
It's how we do it.
Yeah.
Ink, a bottle of ink is pretty much what that was. Yeah.
What's that?
I don't know. Lennox is always eeny, meeny, tiny toe. Tiger.
Eeny, meeny, mighty, mo.
He's always trying to catch tiger by his toe. But it takes like 40 seconds for him to just pick one. I don't know. Okay. Yeah. So while we're on the subject of awesome things this summer and your pre-college movement conference, of course, we're blazing towards it. Just a little bit over a month and a half from Movement Conference 2024. If there's someone listening who's a mom or dad of a teenager or a youth pastor who is not registered, I don't even know if it's even possible, but I'm sure if it is.
We're about a month away.
Sure it is.
Yeah.
Right?
There's plenty of time.
What would you say to that person who's like on the fence about getting to Montana for July 25th through 28th, getting to Big Fork, camping, or getting a hotel room and bringing their teenagers to come?
Man, well, I think that if you're free for those days, and even if you're not free, you should make those days free because it is the number one way to get closer to God and to each other and to just learn so much and have such a fun time. If you come and be a Fresh Life student, you'll get to be instantly immersed in a crowd of people who are at the same stage of life as you, so you'll be able to see what it's like to follow God in your daily life, which is amazing. And if you come with your youth group, you'll be able to have free time to explore Montana, to go to Glacier, go to the lake. And it's just so much fun. Who do we even have this year? We have Kane, we have Maddie Prue, we have KV,
Trout,
Willie Robertson. It's such a good year.
Passion
music. Oh my goodness. I can't wait. So
Christian Stanfield and Brett have been texting about how excited they are to get out here. Melody,
Lisa Harper.
Lisa Harper. Stupid.
It's a good year.
Yeah.
So come and we'll hang out
there. I think
there.
I figured out my sermon I'm preaching Saturday
lucky.
night. I think today God gave it to me.
Wow.
Will you give a hint or is it going to be a surprise?
Ooh, not ready to talk about it yet, but I'm really excited about it. I'm really am. It's a concept I've been kind of like cogitating on, brewing on, thinking on, and specifically when I've been out running lately. And as I was praying about Movement Conference today and what I wanted to share with the students that come, I felt like it like sat heavy on my heart. So I'm excited about it.
Can't wait.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
How about you? You getting any progress in your talk? Because Jennie Lusko is preaching at Movement Conference also.
No.
We should have a foghorn for exciting moments, and you could, or I could just do the ultrasound noise. It's like, what's that? My heart's getting excited for Jennie to preach at Movement Conference.
It's a baby heart.
That's really good. I like that.
It's less exciting than a foghorn.
Yeah.
Or a vuvuzela.
But just a foghorn would be really like too much.
Yeah,
it
too
would
much.
just be too much.
You know what we need? A shofar. Whoa. I pull it out from under the table. That is like a well-traveled Luskos joke. The shofar.
Oh.
Shofar.
It's always a good time for a shofar joke. It's what the high priest would blow on the Day of Atonement. Shofar so good. On the Day of Atonement. It's what they would have blown at marching around Jericho.
Oh.
Ram's horn.
7 days.
7 days. She says, just adding a nice little layer to the joke. 7 days. Like, hey, Naaman, 7 dips. You know, just what? Just some detail. Like, okay, let me show you them. Adam and Eve. Flaming sword. Yeah, there you go. And this Samson.
Touching that honey.
That honey is a good one. Touching that honey is a really good one. I like it. Let's keep this going. No one can guess what you're going to say because there's so many ways you could have taken Samson. Eutychus.
Almost dead.
Eutychus too.
Oh.
Jennie said almost dead. He did die.
Oh.
Thanks for bringing it up.
He was taken up as dead, it said.
Okay. So hot take. Do we think Eutychus didn't die?
I don't know.
I mean,
I think he died.
Taken up as dead. He could have died, but he also could have just like...
What translation are you reading?
Are you saying the news of his death was greatly exaggerated?
Taken up as dead.
Taken up as dead.
Eutychus too.
Because Paul was preaching, and it grew late. Eutychus was sitting in the window, as one would. It's like, I'm excited like to sit on this window seat. Like I see Lennox doing, like, I'm going to sit up here.
I mean, I've sat in a windowsill before.
You think Eutychus's mom told him like 10 times not to sit up there? Because you know how Paul can go on and on.
How old do you think Eutychus was?
Eutychus.
He was a youth.
It says he was a young man. He should have been at Movement Conference.
He wouldn't have fallen asleep then.
No, not with Lisa Harper preaching.
Where is Eutychus?
Not with this fresh hot
He'd be
man that God gave me.
Then crying, then laughing again.
That's right. Okay, so
I'm not finding
Eutychus' story. It's Eutychus. It's okay. It'll get it. We're Googling it live. I'm going to say Acts 22. 20.
Acts 20.
Acts 27 through 12.
20. Okay.
Whoa.
Touching that honey.
Okay, well, it says he was overcome by sleep.
Overcome by sleep. Been there.
Sorry.
Like driving. You know what I mean? Like on a light drive. Have you ever driven and been drowsy and had to open your window and slap yourself?
I have. I've had to pull over.
This is a funny detail. So Paul was speaking to them and continued with his message until midnight. And what a detail is, there were many lamps in the upper room where they were gathered together.
Well, yeah, and you know what? That would make it warm because it was fire.
Lamps.
And if he was sitting up, these lamps are, it's probably
rises.
And it's probably carbon monoxide building up there.
Oh, no. Okay.
So he was getting a little high.
In a window sat a certain young man named Eutychus who was sinking into a deep sleep, and he was overcome by sleep.
Okay.
And as Paul continued speaking, he fell down from the 3rd story and was taken up dead.
He was dead. Dude, you fall backwards out of a window from 30 feet.
Yeah, you're out.
But then Paul went down, fell on him, embracing him, said, "Do not trouble yourselves, for his life is in him."
Okay, so maybe not dead.
But
life
then,
is in him?
At least paralyzed.
But when he had come up, he had broken bread and eaten and talked a long while.
Yeah, broken neck and bread.
And they brought the young man in alive. And they were not a little comforted.
So a lot comforted. Thank you, Luke, for that detail.
They were not a little
They were
comforted.
not a little comforted. That is such a doctor way of saying that. Their level of comfort was not small. I was like, what are you trying to say, bro? Gosh, you know, like Paul was like to Timothy from jail. He was like, "Could you please come because only Luke is with me?"
Oh, poor Luke.
Dude, have you ever hung out with your doctor? You know, a little goes a long way, right? You're like, I just need a friend that's not you.
Oh,
anyhow,
we love the doctors that are listening.
Of course, but we just don't want that to be the only source of input we have. And we were not a little comforted. Timothy, please come. He's like, even send John Mark. I don't even like that guy, but get John Mark out here, right? So that's what he says.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I don't want John Mark, but when I'm alone with Luke, I do. Okay, so that's funny.
Now that's cleared up.
Okay, so do we think he was dead or not?
I don't know.
He said, don't worry, guys. His life is still in him.
Yeah, but Jesus said Lazarus is not dead. He was sleeping, but he was dead. So he said that almost to indicate he was going to bring him back. So do we think Paul said his life is in him in faith about what God was going to do? Or do we think he was just, mostly dead like the Princess Bride?
He's not all dead. He's mostly dead.
And there's only one thing to do. Go through the pockets for loose change, right?
Nice MLT.
Mutton, lettuce, and tomato.
tomato.
So what's the vote? Do we say dead or not dead?
I think dead because it makes it more exciting.
I would say not dead.
Because of the language. Okay, we don't ever do interpretation based on what would be most exciting. Just for the record, that is eisegesis.
I don't know what the actual verbiage
the Greek word is.
Would be.
Okay, so from taken up as dead and life is still in him. I'm going to say dead. Yeah. I'm going to say dead, not because it would be more exciting, although I would love to interpret the Bible that way. But no, I'm going to say because I think Paul was speaking like Jesus is in Lazarus' death. Yeah, almost like, don't worry, he's not dead. And then later he was like, no, he is dead, but he's not going to be dead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Jennie Lusko?
I just said what I thought.
You said not dead.
I said not dead.
So you think just quadriplegic, brain damage probably?
I don't know. I didn't think
he
that
could have been
far
brain
ahead.
That's true, but still alive,
possible.
technically.
Yeah, still technically alive, but
it
not
said his breath is
functioning.
still in him. So you could still have your breath.
Was still in him?
Yeah, you could still have your breath, but not your brain.
I don't think you can.
I think
only
you
on a
can.
ventilator.
You can still have your brain, but not your breath.
Well, yes.
Yes.
Because the breathing stops before the brain does.
But then that's the reason why you want to do CPR, because to keep the heart beating. So
out.
that, okay.
Wow, what a dark turn this all took. Let's get back to Samson and the honey.
Please.
Touching the honey.
Touching that honey.
Touching that honey.
There's
yeah, because he touched it with a stick. There's honey in that dead lion.
Yeah, I know.
Because he touched it with a stick. It's interesting. What do you think about that?
About touching the honey with the stick?
Because he wasn't supposed to touch a dead thing.
Yeah, he was pushing boundaries.
He was pushing boundaries.
He's getting close to the line.
He was towing the line with flirting with
the lion.
Towing the lion. Because if he's not supposed to touch dead things, he had a stick maybe, so he technically was weaseling the honey out.
Okay, here's one. Ruth.
Ooh.
Farmer flirting. Hey, drop a little bit of that grain for her to pick it up. And then when she looks up, he'll be like,
I was trying to think of one with Orpah, but I gave up.
Oh.
I like a good Oprah joke.
Orpah.
Because it says Orpah left. I'm like, yeah, Oprah bailed on her. I always do like a good Oprah joke when I preach that. She went back to the club in Moab with her clear heels.
You get a
son. Mm-hmm.
You get what?
A son.
Like a Naomi.
You get a Naomi.
You get a son. Orpah.
Very good. That's a good joke too.
It's a little bit of a reacher.
It's a reach.
It's a reach. It's
Reacher?
not that funny.
Alan Richardson?
It wasn't that funny.
A little reacher. Okay, one more. I'm gonna Mephibosheth.
I don't even know who that is.
Saul's grandson?
Oh, that's a sad one.
Wait. At that nanny.
At the table.
David invited him over to the table.
But is that the one whose nanny dropped him?
Yes.
And left him in it, or she fell in a ditch or something?
She dropped him and bolted for her own life.
And he got crippled at age 5.
No, you're not joking about his lameness. David invited him into the king's palace and he got to eat for the rest of his life there.
Got to sit at the table.
Yes.
Aww.
And the table covered his lameness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I don't want to make a joke about Mephibosheth's lameness. I wasn't serving you up for cancellation. Jeez.
I think I spent it all on touching that honey.
And you know what? It can't get better than that.
I don't think it
can. The things you did.
That was quick.
And good.
I used up all of my quickness. My quickness is gone.
Your credits, you have 5 coins to use at the arcade and they've all got put on Jurassic Park, the one that cost the most.
Yes.
I could have done the claw machine 5 times, but I played Cruising USA.
Rats.
Oh, man.
But at least I got a teddy bear.
At least you got a teddy bear. Okay, so Movement Conference, mvmnt24.com. Get registered.
All that to say.
That was just a little commercial before we get to our meat and cheese.
Meat and potatoes.
Meat and potatoes.
But for you, it's meat and cheese.
That's true.
So in a minute, excuse me, I'm just clearing my throat like crazy today, girls. It's that jet lag. So my dad, for me, Father's Day, this was the first one since he went to be with Jesus. So now looking back, Louis, my friend Louis Giglio, our friend Louis Giglio texted me, and he, with his dad's in heaven, Shelly's dad's in heaven now. He said, it's a funny thing when you're the tallest branch in your family tree now, because you don't have a branch over you. Your parents always kind of covered you. And when your dad specifically goes to be with Jesus, he said, you're now like the tallest branch because you don't have a dad above you. And if you feel sort of uncovered, and that's how I've kind of felt this year
Right.
with dad, with Jesus. And so this Father's Day, I've been doing a lot of reflection, moving towards it, of, how grateful I am for the dad I have. I mean, you were telling me that I've been a good dad. That's very kind of you. And I would always say that to my dad. I would say, I've stood on your shoulders. He didn't have that example. He had to find his example in Jesus. And then he blazed a trail of being a present, loving father that I've been able to expand upon. And dad was always so nice to me to say, you're such a good dad to these kids. Your kids hit the jackpot with you. And I would always say to him, Dad, like, you gave me dough, cheese, marinaras, olives, like I just had to put it in the oven. Like, you gave me every ingredient, and you were born into a situation without any of those things.
Yeah.
And we were going to record a special church service talking about fatherhood. I asked him, Dad, could you let me interview you about being a dad? Could we talk about Bibles, passages that mean a lot to us? And he's like, oh yeah, I was so excited. He was, going through chemo.
Yeah.
But he was working on, he's like, yeah, I'll work on that. We were going to do that for Fresh Life for the weekend. And then we were going to do another podcast together, just talking about something fun, life update, maybe perspective going through chemo, what he's learned. Cause he said he's never felt closer to God in chemo. And he had a whole nother year or more he could or should have lived, and or at least that we were expecting. And then, of course, he went to be with Jesus April 2nd, the Tuesday after Easter. And so right now, in this moment, Dad would have, there would have been a fourth Lusko. There isn't a fourth Lusko in the fire. There would have been one more seat here. And but we thought it'd be fun, of course, as his first grandchild, to have you kind of come step in. And since we don't have new conversation with him, we are going to, in a minute, re-air the interview Jennie and I did with Dad a while back. And in case anyone didn't get to hear that, and of course, and it'll be a fresh perspective with him in heaven with Jesus to hear his answers again. I haven't re-listened to it yet. I'm going to as we play it now. But before that, I wanted to share something that is my gratitudes I wrote about him from sitting at his hospital bed. In the 2 days, I got there Friday night with you, Good Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday night at midnight, he went to be with Jesus. So the 2-3 days that I was there with him, I had a lot of time to reflect, sitting at his side. I slept there, didn't leave his side from Friday till he was with Jesus. And one of the things I did was write down what I loved about having him as a father. And I wrote 17 things my dad taught me. And so I thought, in his honor, I could share it here. And then if you guys want to chime in on any of these, feel free. So this is, and just, I wanted to say how thankful I am to my Heavenly Father, of course, and to you to partner with in being a dad, because you've helped and encouraged and spoken life to me. And then, of course, Dad, thank you for being such a good dad. Here are my 17 things. Number one is, my dad taught me to pray at the beginning of a first date. First time I ever took a girl on a date, my dad told me, when you pick her up in the car before you get to dinner, say, hey, I'd like to begin this date with prayer. He said, then both of you will remember that God was brought into the conversation the whole date. So I did that at my first date. It was weird, right? She got in the car. I was like, hey, I would like to pray just to begin our date together. And I prayed, and it did set the pace. For the rest of the date, there was this memory that, hey, God's with us and we want to honor him in what we're doing. I prayed with you on our first date. I hope one day when you're, facing that situation, that young man would, there's a bar for that, right? A spiritual bar.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's number one. My dad taught me to take communion with my family. That's one thing that he always was wanting to lead us in, communion. Our last time together, all of us, siblings and grandkids, he led us in communion, which is really special. Number 3, to start the day with scripture. There's not a day that I can remember where Dad didn't sit out with his Bible, usually outdoors with a fire, and watch the sunrise reading scripture to start the day that way.
You followed in that. You do that also.
And it's fun to see Lennox and,
It's sweet.
sometime at some point in your life, you'll wake up before noon and
Actually, I've done better at it, just not today.
you end the day with scripture usually.
I do. It's the last thing I do before I go to bed. It was sweet. Speaking of the morning rhythms, when you and Mom were out of town a few weeks ago, Lennox would get up and go sit in the back porch alone and read his Bible and then read his Boys in the Boat book. And then he'd come in and be like, okay, I'm ready to, well, usually it's watch a show or do school, but he'd be like, okay, I'm ready now. But it was just, he would sit by the fire in the backyard every single morning you guys were gone.
So
Third
So
generation.
it's already, he's 6 and he's already getting,
and that
beautiful.
Bible Papa
Implemented
Chip
in
gave
his
him
life.
too.
Yeah.
It's so sweet.
it's sweet. It's really fun to watch him do it.
Precious.
Wow. Number 4, to care for the poor. I can't remember a time, excuse me, when my dad ever prayed for a meal and he didn't also say some version of, we acknowledge the needs of those less fortunate than ourselves, which I just love that it was always on his mind to care for those less fortunate, to care for the poor, to care, you would Thanksgiving or holidays, he would go volunteer at soup kitchens, and he just had a care, a high regard for the poor, and wanting to get to Africa to care for widows and prisoners, and he cared for the poor, which is true religion, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Number 5, my dad taught me to be individual and intentional with my kids. He had a real special relationship with all 5 of his kids, and I feel like my relationship with you is different than Clover and different than Daisy, and that's good, right? My dad had such a fond love for you like a daughter and had a unique relationship with you.
And with all the grandkids too.
There's 20 grandkids.
He would always, we didn't live there, but even when he was in town, he'd be so special about taking one of us to lunch. He would take me to Famous Dave's. That was our spot. But and then like in New Mexico, we have a huge family group chat, and he'd always send photos of coffee or going to a track meet, and it was always so sweet.
Yeah.
Individually attentive.
Yes.
Yeah, because you can't really look at kids like cookies. It's not like each one's the same mold. They're all unique and different and need different things. My dad taught me to enjoy ritual, number 6. Every Saturday, we'd go to the car wash and go to Great Harvest Bread and get a slice of bread that was like a sample. And he'd buy a loaf, but you're allowed to get a sample of bread. And I was like a kid, I loved, hey, get a free sample of bread. I would put honey and butter on it. And
yummy.
And then probably get crumbs in the car that we just got washed, right? But the ritual of that, Manly Man fishing trips, he called them. He would take all the boys on a fishing trip or a camping trip. He would make cinnamon rolls always on holidays, just the ritual of things.
Which you also have
He would always
continued.
watch Jesus of Nazareth.
Which you also continue.
Well, on Christmas Eve or Easter. The first half at Christmas, the second half at Easter. It's a 3-hour-long movie. Jesus is very blue-eyed, very white, very Caucasian.
It's very accurate.
Yes, exactly. Jesus was very Eastern European, very, very Western European.
It's Jim Caviezel, right?
That's
is that
The
new
Passion
one?
of the Christ.
Right.
He liked that too. Now we have The Chosen to watch, though.
That one's good.
We're going to have to mix that in once we get to the Passion of the Christ season.
Oh, that'll be
hard.
That'll be rough.
Wow.
But good to
But
watch.
beautiful. Number 7, my dad taught me to have a good signature catchphrase. I don't know if I have mine yet, but my dad really had his. I used to joke sometimes that calling him was like pulling the string on the back of Woody, because Woody would say, "There's a snake in my boot," or, somebody poisoned the water hole. Or if my dad would always say some version of, "Hey, Dad, how you doing?" And he'd go, Levi, I'm just working my little fingers to the bone. And I'd always be like, that's so gross. Like, because he meant he's typing so much that his fingers are being worked to the bone.
Ew.
Or
Which
you would
is
say,
pretty accurate.
I'm just slaying dragons and putting out prairie fires. Or, he had a few other things like that you just could rely on him. Or he would say, I'm just changing the world in my own little way, And so like, I just think it's like fun to have catchphrases.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to work on mine. Do I have any catchphrases yet?
Oh man, I feel like that's a harder answer. There's what do you not say is a better question to ask.
As a catchphrase?
Yeah, I feel like you have so many. Oh man, I'll have to come back to this when I have a good answer.
Interrupt me when you do. Just put your hand up.
Okay.
Or pull my string.
Boop.
I'm going to have to work on my catchphrases, though.
Mm-hmm.
I need to get a couple of those in my repertoire. He would say, I'm on my way. Like when I was a kid at soccer practice, I would call him. He'd give us a quarter, go to the payphone, call him, hey, we're ready to be picked up. And he'd go, oh, no, I'm on my way.
Just around the corner.
Just around the corner. That could mean he hasn't left his office yet. That could mean he's across state lines. Like, I'm on my way was a very generous, spacious way of talking about his location.
Yes.
And my dad taught me, number 8, to work hard. He worked hard at whatever he did.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't phone things in. He had a prodigious work ethic.
Mm-hmm. I don't like it. I love it. I feel like you say that every single time we ask if you like something. Oh, I don't like it. I love it.
I don't like it. I love it.
Every single time.
Dad, look what I did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that.
You
I
also
love
can
it.
be counted on to quote Princess Bride
Mm-hmm.
in any encounter,
That's true.
any dealing that I have. with
Okay,
you.
what about we're off to see the wizard?
The Wonderful Wizard of Oz.
I usually
We
say we're
also-
off to see the
Goodbye,
Yeah.
hotel room.
Goodbye.
goodbye
That's a big
hotel
one.
room.
We always say goodbye to the hotel rooms. Or
It's our way of saying thank you for letting us
Mhm.
pretend it's our little house for the night. We always say goodbye to our
every
hotel
single-
rooms.
We're packing up. We have our suitcases. Goodbye, hotel room.
Goodbye hotel room.
We
That's a
joke
big
around
one.
how our kids'
When we get,
future spouses are going to be like,
You're so weird.
I don't know
but
if
then
this
they'll
one
start
was
doing
you
it
as
too.
much.
Dude, how rude would it be to not say goodbye to your hotel room? It's like, it's been so nice to you. It's been your pretend little house for a while, right?
Yeah. You also, I think Lenya started it, but we've all kind of taken it. Was
Goodbye watermelon airplane.
yeah. Bye watermelon airplane. I don't know where that came from.
We have a lot of weird inside jokes.
And then
Our
we
like
Lusko
that.
tried to
family
start a
catchphrases
Lusko.
are bizarre.
The bang bang choo choo
Choo-choo
train.
train.
Come on, Luskos, do your
We
thing.
do like that.
We haven't said that one in a while.
Not in a
That's
while.
true.
Gonna need to bring it back. Yes. Okay. That's
So
good.
That's
No, that's
I
great.
had it.
Please
It
interrupt
came.
me at all times if you think of more.
okay.
Catchphrases or inside jokes are good. Number 9, my dad taught me to never give up on people.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like my dad was never ready to write someone off or out of his life to a degree that was always inspiring. He just wanted to build bridges and not, he would, even people like that, be like, dude, why are you still like friends with that guy? Like, good grief. He's like, I just like, he's a serial killer, Dad. It's like, and he's like, well, I just never know. Like, he just was that way.
Yeah.
And
That's
he
true.
would keep and foster open lines of communication and not easily, quickly wall up, which is inspiring.
Yeah.
Number 10, my dad taught me to not underestimate the power of showing up.
Yeah.
Yeah, as
Which
you mentioned.
he did. He was the master of showing up.
I mean, he would have been at your graduation. He would have been at your
Yeah.
tennis this year. He would just randomly, he
Yeah.
would just be there.
It's the best.
Yeah.
Good memories.
With an iPad and like a pair of readers on his sunglasses, like just.
Well, and I think that's the thing that was so powerful about it is that it was so simple and so like, oh, Papa's here. Wait, when did he get here? Like, but just looking back, you just see just those strung together, made such a powerful impact.
I don't remember one tour we would go on where at some point along the way he would show up. We did this last tour that he got to come on, the Wonder of Advent tour, and he showed up for our San Antonio tour stop. And you guys, I know had a special little moment there down by the Riverwalk.
It's sweet.
And that was like that for every tour we would go on. O2
Yes,
Experience, School
every
Church.
tour.
He was at the first Fresh Life service,
He was at the event that you spoke at in Montana before we even lived here.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
the outreach event. He was there.
He was always so excited by what we were doing. And I know I'm telling all my examples from our family, but all those other kids, he would be that for them too, you know, and that's really inspiring. He was a really good grandpa and dad. Okay,
Yeah.
number 11. He knew that encouragement is a superpower, and so is a box of Krispy Kreme donuts. You know, he would send a text encouraging me most Sundays about the sermon, and he would show with donuts, and just those little things, those little gestures went such a long way.
Well, and it was usually things that he wouldn't eat either. Like,
because he didn't eat donuts. You're
taking
right.
grandkids to McDonald's, he would never eat McDonald's.
Or Chick-fil-A.
But he loved taking his grandkids and kids to places that they loved and not necessarily
donuts
that he loved.
And ice cream and very good. Nothing like a little sugar, right? Number 13, if there's a fire, light it. My dad just loved fire. He loved the inspiration of a sunrise or sunset, of little things like birds chirping and hot coffee. And
You've carried that on, all those
things. Even like when he would come out to Montana, I'd be like, Dad, where'd you go? I have a meeting or whatever, and he'd be off for a while. He's like, I just went up to the ski area. I'm like, Dad, it's not even ski season. What do you mean? He's like, I just wanted to be around it. You just go up there. You just love that.
He's very quirky.
Quirky, but like that's like that fire pit needs to be lit.
Good way.
Yeah, and in a very good way. But quirky without a doubt.
Yes.
He loved being around horses. Loved being around anything that kind of was nostalgic for him of his childhood.
He loved stuffed moose. Stuffed mooses.
Stuffed moose.
Any moose that's hanging on a wall, he'd be like, "Oh, moose."
He did like dead animals on walls for sure.
It was a weird.
But again, that's like for him that just old house on the prairie. Loved that stuff, and he loved parades and history, and he would go to like he loved like going to like a Little Bighorn or on his way to see this, and that he imprinted that on me, that love and fascination for those historic places. Washington, D.C., I remember he took me there, and so many different things like that. So if there's a fire, light it is kind of the heading.
Love that.
Over that. Okay. Number 14, my dad taught me, keep the oil flowing and the altar in good working order in your home. Family devos, even if they're hard, even if the kids are screaming and fighting and not paying attention,
that never happened.
All throughout my life and our life now, that's a fact. But he would still keep trying. Prayer, convos about spiritual things, trying to do conversations at significant moments, all those sorts of things. He would save seats for his kids in church, the ones who lived near him always. So he kept that altar in good working order and kept the oil flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did.
My dad taught me that grandchildren are the reward for having endured parenthood, because he sure loved his grandkids. And he's got me excited for the potential for one day with you or Clover or whoever of our kids eventually, end up procreating, and just this reality of little people coming around, right? I get to be a G daddy and you get to be a grandma, and it's going to be just quite fun.
Can't wait.
I'm not putting pressure on you.
But I also have just loved being a parent. But I know it's different. I know being a parent is different than being a grandkid. Being a grandparent. But I'm just thankful.
Excited for it. Number 16. My dad taught me to never let a plan get in the way of a good adventure, because he always had his heart ahead of his mind on these plans, and his heart is ahead of his ability, to some degree, like going camping. Great. Yeah. Did we think about bringing the tent? We're sleeping in the car tonight. Or, we've got the tent, but we don't have tent poles. He, that was just kind of the funny ridiculousness of my dad. Like, he wrapped presents, but forgot to label them, So it's like, how many times in our lives open a present, it's like, oh, that's not for you, that's for you. Because he didn't let a plan get in the way of a good adventure. And that was sort of the funny wildness of my dad. Like, one time I picked him up and he had like 3 suitcases. And he was staying for like 4 days. I'm like, why do you have 3 suitcases? What's in this one? He's like, that's my one for my shoes. He had brought a whole suitcase of shoes.
And he'd always, without failure, leave at least one thing everywhere he went.
Oh, yes.
So at our house, we have so many readers, slippers,
swimsuits, chargers.
A tooth one time.
He
left a tooth
in the cold plunge.
He was always.
Or he would take our stuff on accident. Yeah. So like now, like he went out of his way towards the end of always like pointing out, I didn't leave anything. He's like, check me out. He's like, I didn't leave anything in your house, Levi.
Or I didn't take anything.
Yeah. And then we're like, dude, we found this like 2 days later. Yes, you did. It was amazing. I wish we would still find things he left. That's amazing. All right. Well, last but not least, things my dad taught me, 17 things, number 17. It's not the 80-yard passes that count the most. It's the 3 yards and the cloud of dust. By that, I mean, it wasn't just the big stuff. Yes, he took me on a trip before we got married and tried to impart marriage advice to me. He did that for all his kids. He took intentional time at big moments, rites of passage type moments, but it was also the packed lunches. It was the daily prayers. It was the apologies if he had lost his temper and we got sideways, which happened between me and him all the time. And it was the agonizingly difficult failures and the way he picked himself back up from those. My dad taught me that success in fatherhood isn't big stuff. It's little things repeated constantly. 3 yards and a cloud of dust, right? That whole, I'm just going to keep on blocking and tackling. I'm going to keep on 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard. Eventually, you're going to get there. Well, that's a bad analogy because if you just did 1 yard 3 times, you'd lose your first down. But you get what I'm saying. It's 3
progress,
yards,
forward motion,
and a cloud of dust.
Yes.
But just that idea of faithfulness over time and how slow slicing you can get your way to success, right? And of course, and then lastly, this was a cheat 18. My dad taught me never drink coffee with a lid on because he would always take the lid off his Starbucks. And he goes, it doesn't taste good coming through a tiny hole. You need to smell it, which is true. It does taste better if you can smell it. But his car was always spilled with coffee everywhere. The seats are covered in coffee stains. The cup holders are so sticky for his coffee because he would be driving his Mustang convertible with the top down, sloshing coffee everywhere, just like cheersing me but he wouldn't have the lid on. And it made me so stressful in my car when he takes the lid off. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to spill everywhere. Yeah. But life's too short, he would say, to drink coffee with a lid on. And I love that about him. He knew that life is a treasure. Life's a vapor. Life's a shadow. And that only what's done for Christ will last. So, hey, until that day that we get to see you again, Dad, here's to drinking coffee with the lid off. Amen. Cheers. You got your lid off there. Cheers, Dad.
We love you, Chip Lusko.
Happy Father's Day. Is there anything you guys want to add about your grandpa Chip or your father-in-law who loved you very much?
Man.
You said all the things that that I wrote down. I think adding on, you mentioned it, but investing in the people who marry your kids, because it will change their lives, and just how he invested in me, not his actual daughter, but as a daughter. And
what
he just cared.
What did he call you always?
Jennifer.
Always called you Jennifer, not Jennie.
Yeah. And he also didn't know how to spell Jennie. So whenever he tried to write Jennie, it would always be Jeni or Jenny or whatever.
He knew all the ways to spell Jennie. It's not that he didn't know how to. He just knew, there were a lot of ways.
He was touching the honey. Yeah.
No, but he was always interested and asked pointed questions and cared. And I think, and to your point of the 3 block and tackles or 3 yards and cloud of dust, always taking a moment. Always taking a moment. He always took a moment with me and made me feel like I was special and one of his own. And I think that's changed my life. Yeah.
Writing that list while sitting there with him in those final moments was really hard, of course. But I'm grateful to get to share it out loud and get to share it with our Luskoteers who, if you listen to this podcast and are blessed by our ministry, that's a blessing to Chip Lusko's reward in heaven, because it's, of course, the assist that he gave us that we get the alley-oop, standing on his shoulders. And now to see it 3rd generation, he was the first Christian, you'll hear in the interview that follows, he was the first person in his family to get saved. Yeah. And he got to lead his mom to the Lord. And of course, now us and you, and as every one of you Luskoteers go on, you have this great man of God that was imperfect, broken. He would be the first to say that, but loved Jesus and wanted that. Anyhow, I'm just going to now set up this conversation that Jennie and I got to have. Olivia, was there anything you'd want to add about your Grandpa Chip?
Well, first of all, he was the king of nicknames for everybody. I was Livy Beth. And I love being Livy Beth.
Yeah. It's okay. You had such a sweet relationship with him.
You guys just had the funnest relationship. And it's, you're the first of the grandchildren to step into adulthood. You turned 18, and it was so fun to kind of watch your relationship with him blossom past childhood and into the adult friendship with him. And that is so fun. And
when we got to spend Liv's birthday in Albuquerque with your family, and I just have that picture of your dad behind her with his hands on her shoulders and just praying for her and speaking life over her.
And I'll close with this. Someone reminded me recently that the prayers we pray are put into golden bowls, and the golden bowls get answered. God pulls the prayer out of them when it's going to answer them, right? So every prayer we pray gets answered eventually, not always in the moment we ask it, and not always in the way we want them to be answered. But to think about this, the last time the golden bowls are mentioned is in Revelation, when they get dumped out, meaning every prayer finally gets answered. What's wild is my dad prayed for me, for you, our whole lives, and a lot of those prayers didn't get answered. So they're in the golden bowls. So let's say next Thursday, God answers one of them, something happens. The day you get married, for example, the day you have your first kid, he already prayed for you as a mom, prayed for you as his great grandkids.
Prayed for your future husband.
Okay, so what's wild is the day that happens and God answers it, and you now meet this guy or get married to this guy or whatever, even though in one sense we're going to be sad that he's not there physically, the day God picks that incense out of the bowl and it gets answered, Papa's there in heaven with Len, and they get to say, yes, that prayer got answered. They got to put that prayer in the bowl.
Wow.
And so what beautiful. I want to do, what you want to do, what we all want to do more is let's put more prayers in those bowls.
Yeah.
So that whether we're here or in heaven, when they get answered, we're participating more. And I love that thought that Grandpa is participating when you get married in that. He is a part of that. And so the more we put those prayers in the bowls, the more we're being a part of eternally what God's going to continue to do.
I love that.
It's beautiful.
Thanks for sharing your emotion. That's hard and fresh and beautiful. Thank you for allowing this safe space to talk about hard things. And maybe listening or watching to this is hard for you because of grief you've gone through, but I hope it's also healing to see, hey, the choice is suppress it, numb it, or process it. And what we're trying to do here is in a healthy way process it, because as my counselor reminded me last week, you cannot heal what you do not feel. So if you don't feel it, by feeling the sadness we're sitting in, it gives the space for something to be healed because it's being felt.
So
and
good.
We'd rather not feel unpleasant things, but by feeling them, they can get healed. So maybe even someone listening now, you've got decades old grief you've never processed, and this is hard for you to talk about or think about or journal about, like what I did there. But by doing it, you will feel it, thus can begin the process of healing it. So I pray that's helpful for you. And without further ado, please do enjoy this conversation with Jennie and myself and the one and only Chip Lusko. Well, you're the first person I haven't had to say welcome to Hey, it's the Luskos, because I feel like as a Lusko, you automatically have that built in.
Ooh.
But welcome to Hey, it's the Luskos.
We're glad you're here,
nonetheless.
Chip.
Fun to be here.
That's awesome. Now, Dad, this is going to be equal parts therapy and payback. It's going to be just a little bit of one column and a little bit of the other. But all joking aside, just so thankful for you. Friendship, your leadership, example, the legacy of faith that we're trying to build on that you have handed to us, and it's pretty special.
An honor to be here. It's fun to be here, always.
It's awesome. And I got you in the cold plunge with happiness this time.
6:20.
That's 6:20?
Last night.
Oh, 6 minutes and 20 seconds.
That's right.
Yeah. That's
new record.
Personal best. And you enjoyed it.
I did.
Because your first time, you didn't have a good experience.
Tell us about that.
I didn't like it.
Yeah.
It was a mind over matter. I was afraid of it.
It was also winter. It was like the depths of winter, though.
You are rightfully afraid of it. Your body knows what's not good for it, right? It's like, this is not good for me. This is cold. This is scary.
It's all the wrong things.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of a warm, cozy fire and a cup of coffee.
Which your body craves.
Yeah, and let's just get it out in the open, because they're going to say it if I don't. I got in it and I exhaled so strong, I blew out a cap on my
He
tooth.
spit out a tooth. Yeah. And you later said, if you ever are in the cold plunge and you find a tooth, I'm missing a tooth. And we did find it months later.
Yes.
Daisy was on the cold
Daisy.
plunge and was like, I think I found a tooth. It was like a scene from Home Alone. You know? But that was also a metal cold plunge, which was harder to hold.
Yeah.
Because you could Christmas story it, your hands could stick to it.
Yeah.
And it was winter, which is always worse to get out.
That's horrible.
But now you're a believer. You were like this morning, hey, let's get in the cold plunge. Which
Right. I've done some research on it, on the inflammation and, the Laird Hamilton stuff. And so I'm a believer. I'm going to get one.
You're in.
Yep.
You're in on cold plunges. Yeah. Well, let's start at the beginning. Let's set the record straight because I've heard stories. We've, grown up, but I'm trying to make sure I have proper chronology. I know you were born in Michigan and Lansing is the city?
No, born in Detroit.
Oh, that's why we're here.
Yeah,
we're here to establish the facts.
All right. Fact checking.
So you're born in Detroit. The year is
1951.
So is that correct pronunciation? Detroit?
No.
Oh.
No, it's Detroit. It's actually a French word. Detroit.
It's French?
It's French.
That makes sense.
Oh, but you probably don't say the last T.
No,
Detroit.
Detroit.
That's
Makes
why.
sense.
How it was,
They
yeah.
had Canada. They had probably a lot of Michigan. Do we buy it from the French?
Buy it, I think.
Was it part of Louisiana?
I think taking it was
Wasn't it
more
part of the
accurate.
Louisiana Purchase?
Negative.
Oh.
Not that far north.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Canada territories.
It was originally Canadian.
part of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
They had the trappers going on up there.
Right.
Okay. So you're born in Detroit.
Right.
French were not involved.
Right. Nope.
It's 1951.
Yeah.
Okay. What's your first memory?
Gosh, my grandmother. My mom was 15 when I was she first got pregnant. So in those days, a single mom. I mean, it wasn't even close to what she experienced now. I mean,
She got pregnant with you at 15?
Yes. And
Wow.
I was born when she was 16. And so, I mean, it was a huge scandal in those days. It was a Christian family she was born into. So I just thank the Lord that she kept me, so she kind of gave me to my grandmother. It's my first memory of my grandmother.
Your first memory is your grandmother and being just present in your life?
Wow.
And what do you remember about her?
She prayed for me. I remember that. I'm not spiritualizing it. She also made great fish fries. So those are two things that I remember of her. And she was a neat woman. She was.
Prayer and fried fish.
Fried fish.
That's soul food and
There you go.
and warm food. That's
Okay, and your mom's name,
Nancy Dawn.
Nancy Dawn.
Nancy Dawn.
Yep.
I got
And
the city wrong, so I'm glad to have something right.
yes. And obviously, I mean, you kind of grew up together. Was she
Yeah.
there? Was she present as you were growing up, or were you more like raised in your?
Well,
with your grandma?
She went through 3 marriages. So before she was 21. So it was difficult. And so I was bounced around between my grandmother, which was my stable home, and then my mom and my bio father, as they say today. And so it definitely messed with me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And your birth name, Olson Frederick Buchanan
Junior.
Jr.
That's right.
Olson Frederick Buchanan Jr. And I've known that name existed
Right.
my whole life, but also I've never heard anybody call you that really because you changed your name when you were 12 years old.
Right. I was never called that because my mom divorced Olson immediately when I was, less than 2 years old. So
Your mom's 18.
16, 17, whatever. But, they called me Chip from the very beginning.
And where'd that name come from?
Came from a cartoon, not Chip and Dale or anything. It just came from a cartoon that was popular at that time.
Which one?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know the
I
cartoon.
don't know the
And they
cartoon.
just started calling you Chip.
Yeah.
And was that your grandparents or
My
your mom?
it was just
And
generally
it was
I was
Chipper,
called-
right?
It was Chipper, and no one calls me that. Levi.
Or is allowed to? I'm just saying.
Although Lennox recently is like, I call Papa Poppy.
Poppy.
He can call me whatever he wants.
Whatever he wants.
Right.
Okay, so Chipper, Chipper,
Right.
and then that just stuck.
You're right.
And no one's calling you Olson.
No, ever, never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when did you know I'm changing my name?
I wanted to change my name for a long time. My mom remarried to a stable person, and when I was
This is where Lusko comes
right,
from.
George Lusko.
Now we're getting, hey, it's the Lusko's
There
origin
you go.
story here, right?
That's right. And so he was very stable.
George Lusko,
Yeah, and
adopted father.
never really adopted me, but changed my name legally, oddly enough. So yeah, interesting. So at about 5, they wanted me.
So none of this is
full-time.
legal. The Luskos are not legal.
Wow. So He says, you're taking my name.
No, the Lusko name is my legal name.
Okay.
It just wasn't ever adopted. You can change your name to whatever you want.
Wait,
Right.
did you have a say in that?
Technically.
Yeah.
Most part.
But Lusko.
Yeah.
So
I
Buchanan's
wanted it.
out. So your
Yeah.
name for a while became Olson Frederick Lusko.
No, they went, they always called me Chip Lusko. All it was in school. I wasn't, in the Army or anything.
Right.
So it just was a matter of when they enrolled me, they called me Chip Lusko. And so, but it was inconvenient, legally having the Buchanan name. So I didn't affiliate with it at all. I didn't like the name Olson to begin with. I mean, that
And
sucked.
it kind of tied you to a father who wasn't present in your life.
Right. He was traveling all over the world, and I never knew him.
What did you know of him?
Yeah, I know he was in the Korean War.
Wow.
I know he lost a finger. I know he had a box full of medals. I know he worked for Chrysler and International Finance. And I'd get postcards from Geneva and Munich and Buenos Aires.
Wow.
And I hear stories of him in Cuba and being thrown in jail when the Batista thing went down. And Castro came in to see him.
Oh,
I know
my
that.
gosh.
And I saw him maybe 3 times before I was 21.
No relationship, though, no support, no money.
I think he paid child support of $60 a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the interactions with him steadily even diminished more.
They stayed pretty steady, just postcards from all over the world.
How long did that continue?
Until I graduated from high school. He did come to my graduation.
Wow.
And it was just like having a stranger come. It was, I recognized him, but it's so odd. Hey, he's your father. He's like, so?
Yeah.
He's like a donor is what he was. And
Right.
that was about it.
Yeah. And how old was he when your mom was 15?
I'm just guessing it was his lower 20s, it was 51. Yeah, he was in the Army.
Which wouldn't even be legal today.
I'm sure it wasn't legal in that day.
Okay.
I have no
Still,
doubt. It's
legal
really illegal.
legalities.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm just saying,
Right.
had never really occurred to me.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. We'd ever talked about his age. At the
So I was
time,
born out of wedlock, never really, it wasn't my fault. So I never really carried that.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Right.
Okay. So now your mom's remarried. What was your relationship with Lusko, George Lusko like?
Yeah, he was a car executive. Detroit's a big car town, and he worked in manufacturing and whatnot. And he gave me a tremendous work ethic, very strong work ethic. I mean, and believed in. He was very financially. I remember him when I was like 10, because I went to live with them when I was 5. Never saw my grandmother ever again.
Oh.
Never. But she's their first memory, but now deleted from the scene.
Yeah, her mom my mom dealt with relational breakdown by just ending it. She would be very hot, and then boom, people would be discarded.
Dead to her.
Yeah, precisely. And so
Wow.
she never saw her mother again.
Oof.
Now, I never saw my grandmother. So my grandfather had died, but so I went to live with George, and he was very solid, very stable. But I was kind of raining on his parade. He married this young, beautiful woman, and here I'm the baggage from previous relationships.
Yeah.
But he was kind to me.
But there wasn't that
No, I mean, I think
heavy hand.
When I was 27, just before he was murdered, he told me he loved me.
Wow.
The only time in my life.
Wow.
And so, I mean, that's what it is. It's probably not that unusual for a stepfather.
I don't know. I mean, that's a lot, and obviously you just gave a very intense part of the chapter too, that he was murdered.
Right. That's down the road a little bit, but yeah. So, but he was a good guy.
George, this is George Lusko.
Lusko,
So this is where the name came from.
That's correct.
Your memories from him, you love at the end, but not expressed at the beginning, but steady, present.
Yep. And he got to see Rebecca Dawn before he passed away.
My older sister.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, she was born, and that was pretty cool.
Who has your mom's middle name?
Middle name, yeah. Dawn.
As does Clover.
Clover Dawn.
Clover Dawn.
Okay. And so those are your parents. Your mom, though, you mentioned the wall down when something was done. Did that ever happen to you,
No.
or did you and your mom stay on?
No, we stayed on great terms till the day she died. I mean, we never. She genuinely loved me.
Yeah.
And that really was a saving grace.
Yeah.
Okay. So, where did your idea of what it meant to be a man come from? Did this come from George? Did this come from your grandfather? You said he was.
I know. I was 3 or 4 when he died.
On your mom's side.
Yeah, my mom's side. And from George. He is a very strong man. As I say, really strong work ethic, but
and successful.
Very successful, but worked hard. Loved my mom dearly. I mean, gave her a fresh rose every day. There was always a fresh red rose on the table. He was a romantic in his own way.
How did they meet?
Probably at a bar.
Okay,
just guessing.
Yeah, they like to go out. And,
Right.
Yeah.
So, but I remember when I was 10, one day after dinner, he was going to give me a little man-to-man talk, and he took a 10 or 20 out of his pocket. He slammed it down on the table. Sorry for the audio guys. But he did.
Or the person who just fell off the treadmill.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said, this is the most important thing in life.
Wow.
So that was the value system I had. Cars, minks, jewels, travels, trips, and whatnot.
So they had furs, they had money.
All the things.
So when he did that, was that something in your mind that was like, okay, this is what life's about? Or
No.
did you see
Did
through
you
it?
push back on that?
No. Yeah,
In your own heart.
I'm not so sure.
How old are you at this time?
10.
You're 10 years old.
10 years old, but I remember.
And
10,
the
12,
man in your life shaping you at this point
Uh-huh.
tells you what the most important thing is, and it's money.
Right.
But something inside of you didn't feel.
Maybe not. Just I didn't buy into it for sure.
Yeah.
I enjoyed all the things that we had, and but I didn't absorb it.
Okay, so
And
Chip,
were you still in Detroit at this time?
We had moved up.
stop mocking.
Sorry.
him.
I'm trying to speak your language.
That's called mocking. It's what We've established that's not correct pronunciation.
Right.
Detroit.
Detroit.
No, we had moved up to the thumb. Detroit was blowing up at that time.
The thumb of
Michigan, you're right.
Michigan.
Thumb of Michigan, right there.
Because it's
the only state.
Detroit's shaped like a mitten.
Michigan is shaped like a mitten.
Michigan
Right.
is shaped like a mitten.
Right.
The Michigan
People say,
mitten.
I lived in Littlefinger, that's Petoskey in Traverse City. I lived in the Thumb, because there were huge racial issues in Detroit in the late 60s. I mean, it was
As there
on
were
fire.
all across the country.
All over.
Yeah.
It was. But it was really bad in Detroit. And it
Came to a point of 68, right?
67 was a big riots where, hundreds of people died. And you could see the city on fire.
Oh,
And it was awful.
gosh.
Wow.
And you remember that?
I remember very, very strongly. By the time I'm 16,
Wow.
So how are you navigating race then? From your parents to you, like even just your worldview developing? The world was in conflict with the 60s, right?
That's a good question, Levi. And I'll be honest, my parents were racists. They were. They voted for George Wallace. I remember my uncle saying, they were anti-biracial marriages, that, sparrows don't mate with robins. I'm like, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
But that was their thinking. There was two different species.
Yeah.
Gosh.
But I never bought into it. Not one. I never pushed back, but I never.
You saw it for what it was.
I saw it for just blatant racism.
Wow.
And I just took a hard pass on that.
Yeah.
Then I went to college and played football with guys where I really got to know for the first time, because when we lived up in the Thumb, it wasn't
Very white.
No, totally white.
All white.
Wow.
Wow. And then when I got to college and started meeting black guys, and I dated a black girl, and it's tremendous. I really resent they've made us think about it, because race means nothing to me.
Yeah.
I think it's racist to point out, that you have to think about somebody's skin color.
Yeah.
It means nothing to me. I know, that's why I say things, because I think I think there are idiosyncrasies about each race that are interesting and funny and fascinating. And not to be able to point them out to me is really frustrating.
Yeah. So, but you saw racism exposed to you, but even as a child, you were aware this was ugly, this is wrong. Yeah. In your
clearly.
family.
It was crystal clear to me.
Interesting. Okay, so you're 10. What do you enjoy? What's fun? What's life-giving? Horses.
Yeah, we moved into a horse area, and I got into horses, and it was really good.
Up
there towards in the Thumb, yeah. And we had quarter horses. We had up to 20 horses I took care of. Probably really saved me from getting in a lot of trouble. I had to go. You get up. Horses don't take a vacation. Yeah,
That's the soundbite right there. Horses don't take a vacation.
Yeah. So 7 a.m. you do chores. 5 p.m. you do chores. After practice, you do chores.
Wow.
I mean, so 20 horses are a piece of work.
Yeah.
And but I loved it. I got to be a good rider. I got to do horseback, train horses, and do give lessons.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was a really huge part of my life.
Wow.
Which was your favorite horse?
Sugarfoot. She was a sorrel with one white stocking. Sugarfoot. She was gorgeous.
And your first horse, this is a famous story.
Yeah.
Your first horse, this one I know my whole life, Princess,
Right?
was your first. It was a gift to you
That's right.
on your 5th birthday.
Ninth.
Birthday. I was way off.
Almost.
Right.
Close.
Samsonite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And we had a birthday party. We were going to go see The Time Machine that night for a movie. All my friends were over. And they brought her out of the stable as a surprise to me. And I got on her and she bucked me off, went over the fence, never to be seen for 3 days. Well, this wrecked the birthday party. You can imagine.
That was the center
Well,
of
did you get
attention.
hurt?
No. But she went over the fence and took off.
So everyone's worried.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen to her, and so the party just ended, and I was a wreck for 3 days, and then some pregnant lady rode her down the driveway 3 days later.
Wait, a pregnant lady rode Princess back to you?
Yeah, yeah.
How pregnant was she?
Yeah,
Very pregnant?
She was pretty
Do you know what
pregnant.
became of that baby?
I do not know.
Could be a really important person,
Yeah.
Just think about it.
Right.
Okay. So, and at 12 was when you walked into the court and said, I'm changing my name.
Right.
Because Olson was still lingering around, even though you're
Yeah.
enrolling under it. You're just like, I don't want that.
And you know how kids are. You got out somehow. Who knows how?
Oh.
And they start mocking you
Olsen,
mercilessly.
Olsen.
Olsen, Frederick, and all that stuff.
Meanies.
Yeah. So that had to go. And then so horses and sports. I played all 4 sports in high school. And
What
that
are
was,
the all 4 sports?
basketball, football, track, and baseball.
Well, now there's soccer and field hockey.
Yeah, we
and,
didn't have tennis,
there's-
unfortunately.
yeah, right.
Back in those days, it wasn't a thing.
Okay. Tell me about the day you were in courthouse changing your name to Chip.
You're just mesmerized by that, aren't you?
I think it's fascinating because the way you've told me, you walked into courthouse like pretty much by yourself.
No. Well, because I had to be the driving factor behind because I wasn't adopted. So I had to be
He had no say-so in it.
right. He had to agree to it, but I had to be the one to say, I want to change my name legally.
Wow.
So
And was Olson a family name?
I don't know.
But he
didn't
was
know.
Olson Frederick Buchanan Jr.
Junior, right.
So
Wow, this
It's a
show
terrible
could have been
name,
called
I mean.
"Hey, it's the Buchanans." I'm just saying this is all hanging in the balances here.
Right. Well, I can assure you that wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
So, I just didn't relate to anything about it.
Was he Czechoslovakian?
Lusko was.
Well, I know the name is, so he must have been as well.
Oh,
Obviously,
yeah.
we're
no,
not.
his grand. I do know this about the Lusko name. I mean, his grandparents got off the boat from Czechoslovakia.
In New York?
Yeah, obviously, and then but they migrated. The jobs were in the auto industry. They migrated to Detroit.
yeah.
And then so my dad's parents were. I mean, they were wonderful people. They were right. They were Czechoslovakian. I mean, she cooked like you can't believe.
So you had a relationship with
I did.
your adopted
I
grandmother.
did. She was very sweet, very warm to me. Even the rest of the family didn't appreciate my mom. But
wow.
no, I mean, if you know somebody from like Polish descent or Slavic descent, you go over there and eat, and they go, you too tin. And they have some chicken, city chicken and galumki and pierogies, It's
Wow.
fantastic.
Do you still ever go out and get Czech food?
It's hard to find.
Yeah.
Up in northern Michigan, you can find some pierogies and things like that.
Interesting. Okay, so your name's changed. You have new lease on life. You have Princess as a freshman, but you're taking care of horses every day.
Every day.
And then playing sports all night.
All the time, yeah.
Wow. So that's
No,
that is a good way
I
to live
literally
your life.
Pass
as
out
a
in
young
my
boy.
stew sometimes.
In the stew. That's
I
funny.
did that. It really happened once.
my
When 2 days were happening.
You just fell asleep.
I fell asleep right at the table. Boom.
Now I my whole life heard you say you read the dictionary and encyclopedias
Encyclopedia. Yeah.
for fun.
Yeah.
What got you onto that?
I was just inquisitive. I love to read, and my parents bought me a world book, and they would come door to door in those days and sell encyclopedias.
Oh, yeah.
I never forget it. I mean, that's the only set of books I had on my desk, and I just sat there and read, and I just memorized the biggest cherry-growing states and all the different.
Which is?
With Michigan, Washington State. Michigan, surprisingly, was right behind it. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
And what were you reading other things?
Yeah, I got to read The Black Stallion. I read a lot.
Okay.
I mean, I would read on the bus going home. I would read walking backwards from the bus stop to my house because if it was windy, it would blow. I would
blow the pages.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's always windy up the Great Lakes area.
Yeah,
Chicago.
The weather is wicked bad. I mean, I know you have tough weather here in Montana, but I'm telling you, the humidity, the water coming up, and it's different. That wind it cuts right through you.
Oof.
Oh yeah.
And it's from November to April. There's no break.
And you had to walk from the bus back
Yeah,
home.
it was just maybe
no matter
3/4 of a mile. Yeah, I mean,
no matter the weather.
Right.
Dang.
Yeah.
Now, we slipped by it really quickly, but you mentioned, and I don't recall hearing a lot about this, a grandfather who served in the Korean War.
My actual Al Buchanan served in the Korean War.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you know if he's buried in Arlington or anything like that?
I don't know.
Because he's not alive anymore, right?
Right. He died, I heard, some years back.
But you don't know if there's any military kind of thing that's happened or anything about his service record?
Don't know. Haven't looked into it.
Okay. Yeah, because there's not, for you, a great motivation from the relational equity side.
I just don't relate.
Yeah.
Okay, back to books. Is there a book when you were younger that you read like over and over and over and over again? Okay.
And then they made the movie, and then I got to meet the guy who starred in it, who was from Pueblo, Colorado.
Oh.
Yeah. And so that was amazing. There's a whole series by Walter Farley about this black stallion, but that one was just, and the movie was fantastic. Coppola produced it, and I forget the director, but it was a great movie.
That's
interesting.
Amazing.
No faith in the home other than the almighty dollar?
Christmas and Easter. And I remember my mom saying, I don't like them preaching hellfire and brimstone. And so, but I was taken by a neighbor to Vacation Bible School.
Wow.
I remember that, and very well. And I made a very bad TV table in arts and crafts.
You made a TV table?
I don't know why.
At Vacation Bible School? That's a robust craft. Usually it's like popsicle sticks.
Especially with my skill level, as you know.
Maybe it was out of popsicle
How old
sticks.
were you?
I don't know, 5th, 6th grade.
Were you operating like a jigsaw? Like, this is serious. I mean, that's a real craft. Coming home, I made a table, you know?
VBS.
These days,
learn how to build a table.
It's all usually like balsam wood and, it's paper.
But you recall that. It got my attention. And that's
How old would you have been then?
4th, 5th grade.
When you went to church, what sort of church was it?
Methodist.
Methodist.
Although I played on the Presbyterian basketball team. Because in those days, when you were before you got into mid-high, all the teams were the church league. So there was Catholic, Presbyterian, Methodist, one more, and then there was called All Saints, which was kind of the Pentecost. They threw all the Pentecostals and all the weird, the weird churches.
Wow.
It was a religious
in
cocktail?
Michigan?
Yeah.
Wow.
That's funny.
I thought that's a thing everywhere.
Well, All Saints
not anymore,
is now
probably.
a clothing company.
Right.
I don't know if that's still has any connection to it.
No.
It started in England.
Yeah.
Okay, so but no faith in the home really as a present part of life. So you did
0.
Yeah. Interesting.
But when you went to Vacation Bible School and then you would go to church Christmas and Easter, do you remember where like God might be speaking to you or
Nothing.
anything or nothing
0.
at all?
0.
There was no sense of warmth or I want to pursue this more.
Nope.
Okay.
Nothing.
Wow.
So you're taking care of horses, you're playing sports, you're pretty successful in sports,
And some.
right? I mean,
Yeah.
you went to college for sports
I played football in college, yeah, and
ran track. So we were two-sport college in college.
No, I never. I just played football in college, and
but you set track records
in
from what I remember.
high school.
Okay.
What did you run?
I ran it was now the 880, the half mile, and I ran the anchor leg of the mile relay, which is the 1600 relay.
Oh my gosh.
So I got to the state finals, and so yeah, it was good, but track will just kill. You really got to love to run,
Unless you just do sprints, which I did.
Right.
I did that.
They still beat you down pretty good. So
Wow.
played football,
And what, were you dating people at the time? Did you have girlfriends throughout high school?
Yeah, I did. And again, fortunately, I think I've gotten a lot more trouble if we'd have stayed like in the suburbs of Detroit, which is Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills, big party area. Fortunately, I'm living in a town. I'm living on a horse ranch. I had a garden. I take care of a huge garden.
Wow.
I loved that. I had like an acre garden.
Okay, I didn't know
500
that.
strawberry plants and corn. And that really kept me out of the party scene. I never drank anything or smoked anything in high school. Never went to a party.
Wow.
Never got
Because you got to go read your encyclopedia backwards and get on your horse.
And garden,
right.
which makes sense because we did a Rock the City event with you.
You were really
and
good
you were
at the
doing
gardening.
really
it all
good.
came back.
I took it very seriously.
You did. A woman tried to step on your milk thistle, and you like shooed her away like she had stepped on she had stepped on your baby. You know, I saw that look. You shot her like, "That's my milk thistle," and it was a librarian. You were shushing.
stomping.
You were like, "Shush." You shushed her.
She was stomping.
Now, of course, you know, the upheaval going on in our country, you mentioned racially during the civil rights movement. That's Martin Luther King. That's the assassination. That's Kennedy dying, the moon landing. This is your high school years.
So how old are you in 69?
I've been 17.
Wow.
Yeah, 17, 18. Yeah, I turned 18.
There's a lot of upheaval nationally.
No, it was huge. I mean, people talk about riots and protests going on now, and it's pretty dramatic. I mean, they were closing down colleges. They were bombing the Pentagon.
Oh my gosh.
There was huge. It was, you know, the anti-war movement was massive.
Do you remember where you were when Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated?
I do remember that, and it impacted me. That was an awful spring. You know, he was killed, I think, in March in Memphis. And I was a big supporter of Robert Kennedy. You know, I remember of course, his brother being killed. I was only in, I think, 4th or 5th grade at that time, maybe 6th grade, whatever.
Were you in school when that took place?
I was.
I was in morning, right?
I was in 5th. No, it was the afternoon. I was in Eastern time zone. Excuse me. I guess I was in like 7th grade, but I was in Mrs. Woodbury's class, and the guy came on, principal came on. I mean, it was shocking. Gosh. It just put a darkness over the whole country.
Yeah.
Because he was, I mean, those were the Camelot days. There was hope. There was belief in what was going to happen in America. It was in a post-war baby boom. I mean, there was no limits to anybody. John Kennedy being shot changed this country more than we can ever imagine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And that was in 63. 63.
And then it just continues, as you mentioned. Martin Luther King's assassinated, then Bobby gets shot as
Kennedy.
well.
I mean, that was unbelievable. Now I'm, 67. I was, a junior. It was so crushing.
Because he might have become president too.
He would have become president. He would have beaten Johnson, and I think he would have beaten Nixon. And he was a good guy. He was pro-life. You know, he was very, very sensitive to a lot of the civil rights issues. He was anti-war. I think he would have been a great president.
The only city there wasn't a riot in the night Martin Luther King got assassinated was the city that Bobby Kennedy was in, because he went into the inner city, got up on a platform. Correct. Every Secret Service said don't, and he gave us a talk relating to, I don't know what city he was in.
I think it was in Illinois, but
he related to everybody there who was about to riot that he spoke for the first time openly about his brother's death.
Yes.
And that was I think the city he was in was the only significant city in size that didn't have a riot that night in the country.
So there was a turning. I mean, that brought us Richard Nixon, who was a criminal in the White House. No, it's just, that's verifiable. I mean, he may have been very smart, but he did criminal things.
What were your recollection? I have to ask, because I'm obsessed. Apollo, the whole moonshot era, that's your high school years.
No, I too was totally obsessed by it, Levi.
You're tracking with it?
No, I kept scrapbooks of the headlines. I built for a science project a LEM.
Asking for a friend, where are those scrapbooks at?
Your parents gave them away along with your
my letter jacket.
Your Letterman jacket.
Yeah. So no, I watched it like a hawk. And I watched the moon landing. I mean, it was.
Where were you when?
I was on my couch at our ranch, and it was astonishing.
Wow.
There you go. Okay.
Were you ever at a parade when the astronauts were? Because didn't they do like multiple parades around the country?
Not in our town. They didn't.
Oh.
Okay, so you didn't drink through high school. You mentioned, but you did have a significant drinking experience when you tried to vacuum your parents' pool.
Do we really have to go there?
Of course not. You're welcome to not tell anything you don't want to tell.
I literally have never had a drink in my life.
Okay.
And this is the summer of my senior year. And my parents would have friends over, and they drink a lot. Never touched it. They have keggers. They play music by the horses, and I never touched it. Honestly, not a sip. Well, my senior year, they were making what they called stingers, which is it's a strong drink, it's a mixed drink, and they got me making them. And
you're all of 17.
No, I was 17. Yeah, going in the
serving as bartender,
right? And use these blend and Southern Comfort was involved in one of the drinks, and I would pour 2 or 3 drinks, and I'd finish off the blender.
Yeah,
and I never. I mean, your first drinks,
and that's a strong concoction.
Well, you
I'm sure.
Have any resistance
or food in your stomach, probably.
Right. And so, and they didn't know I was bringing them drinks, and they didn't care.
You were just doing a good service of emptying the blender out.
Wow. I mean, I got so intoxicated, and they didn't know, and I went wandering off, and. Oh man! One of the jobs I was vacuuming our pool with a typical pool vacuum. Well, I got our house vacuum started rolling out towards the pool. I was going to plug it in
and die.
Oh,
there's no GFI outlets at that point. I
surely would have died.
Oh my God!
You were preparing to plug the vacuum cleaner in and vacuum the pool.
That's when they caught me.
Who?
My dad found me out there. Yeah.
And what did you say to him?
I have no idea. So you
don't have memories of it.
I remember being just delirious.
Now, did he sit you down afterwards and talk to you about that?
No, I'll tell you what they did. I really could have died. And I legit.
I think so.
Alcohol poisoning is legit.
And electricity is involved with the pool.
Yeah. And they took, and we had an Airstream trailer, and they covered it with plastic because I was starting to
get ready to vomit.
Yeah. And they covered it with plastic, put me in there, left me alone. And that could have ended badly.
No supervision.
None.
You could have died.
Could have died.
Could have. Yeah.
Didn't.
Wow.
Here we are. Let's move on. Let's move on.
Wow.
Okay. So then where did you go to college?
Went to Central Michigan University, and was right in the middle of the Michigan. And it was great. Got involved in broadcasting there, which really directed my life.
And that was the first time going into broadcasting.
Yeah, I was in journalism. I was the editor of our school paper in high school, but I had no idea about broadcasting. And when I got into radio news, coming through the journalism side, and I saw broadcasting, I just got lit up by it. And
what about it appealed to you?
It's exciting. I mean, in those days, radio and even TV was a lot more fun. Now it's much more corporate. It's all pretty much computerized. There's very little live stuff. I mean, you got your Howard Sterns of the world, but which is a mixed blessing, of course. But there was magic to it. There was excitement. You're on the air and personality, and there was morning shows, and there was new music. Plus the music then. I mean, I know we all have our musical languages, but the music of the 60s was spectacular.
Undeniably incredible.
There was a creative explosion in this country.
Jimi Hendrix and the Beatles.
Well, the Stones and, as you say, the Beatles and the Doors and
Dylan.
Blues. And you can't compare them to Blondie, It's just,
who's Blondie?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
is it
whoever
like,
she might be.
Is it like Good Morning Vietnam? That kind of like wasn't Robin Williams like on the radio and
yes,
exactly.
Like
that kind of feel,
charisma, personality, and you had Motown, which was right in our backyard, which I was around that kind of thing. Then I got into bringing concerts and promoting concerts, and I did from TV, and that's just been the story.
Did you go to college on a scholarship?
No, I did not.
You didn't, but you played on the football team.
I did.
Yeah. And so now you've kind of started to come alive with a job throughout college.
And that really overshadowed my studies. I learned more from the managing the campus radio station, all the facets of, of that. That really, I got my education there much more because broadcasting, at least at our school then, was the NPR, PBS type thing. And it was just boring as toast. I mean, that was, this is PBS, I mean, like, okay, that'll be great when I'm, whenever.
Yeah. At some intermittent point in the future. Yeah. For a rainy afternoon when you're vacuuming the pool, you'll throw that on.
Oh my
okay,
gosh.
so which has, of course, informed your whole life.
Exactly.
Radio has, to this moment, been a constant theme in your life.
Radio and TV, and video.
Media.
Media in general, radio has now become much less of a factor to me. It pays the bills, but I'm much more exhilarated by video and by events and by other forms of media.
Communications
in general, yeah.
That was a spark that was like a aha moment.
Oh, it definitely lit things up.
Okay, so you continue your studies, you get a degree, but all the while your actual vocation.
I got the credits. I was becoming, I was a very bad hippie. I just wasn't good at being a hippie, but I wanted to be a hippie. So I got plenty of credits. I just never transferred them. I went down to Michigan State for a while and got more credits. The degree, it just was kind of my rebellion never getting it.
Do you not go actually pick it up physically?
Right. I never graduated officially from college, though I have the credits.
You had enough credits to do so. Could you do it still at this point?
If I looked into it, I'd have no interest in it.
That would be even just novel to have, though, right?
Yeah.
But like the relationship with Buchanan, it's just there's for you no little or no interest in doing that.
Right.
So my question is, what's a bad hippie?
Well, they could really be dirty and not care about it. And they really could.
So you're a clean hippie?
I was in the laundromat.
You had Germex in your fanny pack.
Did you have long hair?
I did have fairly long hair at one point. Never the,
super
so
long.
That's the 70s sweeping through the country and that, of course.
Yeah. So I went on the road, and looking for, as it was, I was looking for God. I didn't even know it. I was just looking for truth, became very anti-American because of the Vietnam War, and got into drugs, got into all the things, and I was miserable.
Johnson's in the White House?
Johnson's in the White House? No, Nixon. Nixon's in the White House, yeah.
Okay.
And then Nixon.
So you were a hippie in Michigan.
Michigan. Then I took off. I worked in a couple cool radio stations. It just nothing was fulfilling me.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing.
Were you experimenting with drugs at this point?
I was.
As many hippies were, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was a thing. It was the culture. I mean, people were high all the time.
And did that make you feel good, bad? How?
Depending on the drug. I mean, I never met a drug I wouldn't take back then, frankly. I'm not proud of that.
You're not bragging that. You're just saying that's how you were living.
That's how everyone was.
Yeah.
I mean, people were just loaded all the time.
And then when you got out of there, where did you go to?
I got a van, Jennie, and
what kind of van?
Super Bowl. It was a Ford green van, and
like a hippie van,
Econo
not
van.
a VW van, though.
No, an Econo van, line van, and it was Super Bowl Sunday, and I just took off with a girlfriend.
Wow.
And had no plans to go anywhere.
Which direction did you go?
South, to warmth. I knew I wanted to be warm.
Yeah.
You're sick of all this winter.
I-75 south until it stops, which it's in Florida, and where we went, and ended up having adventures in the Bahamas and living on an island where we were the only Caucasians except for the Jehovah's Witnesses, and I was looking for adventure and looking for.
And you just had.
I wanted the answers.
Yeah.
And I was empty.
Yeah.
I just, nothing was fulfilling me.
Yeah. And you just had money, like, how much money did you have?
Well, I had enough. I mean, I'd opened up some this is back in the disco days. I opened and designed discos. I'd be a DJ.
Wow.
But then
so you're pretty set and just.
I was okay.
Would you work when you needed to work?
Yeah. I would work when I needed to work, but I left a good job. I closed my mind to a broadcast career. I had opportunities in Detroit at an ABC affiliate, and I just knew that wasn't. I saw people doing it. I go, I can see how that ends.
The commercialism, the success that your parents had, you didn't want that.
And, I think that the drugs contributed to that. You become kind of cynical. You become kind of, armchair. I'm not going to do that. So it wasn't me. The credo was, drop out.
Tune in, turn on,
drop out. Timothy Leary.
Yep.
So you're on an island. I mean, basically, that's living the life to a lot of people. Like, I'm just free. I can do whatever I want.
Exploring the JW's communication?
Negative.
I mean, they were there.
No, that'd be it. No.
But you knew it's not just money and success. Your parents had that. You didn't, and you didn't want to go work a job.
Right.
But you said you were empty, even taking the drugs, living this life that you're living.
Yeah.
Like, how would you have vocalized that back then?
It's nothing. I mean, the girls had been through that, been through, the sports, been through the parties. And it's just, I was kind of scared that there wasn't going to be an answer.
Wow. And then where did you go next?
Well,
it was around that time when you met my mom.
Your mom was that girlfriend.
Oh, my mom was that girlfriend.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know she was the girlfriend. I knew there was girlfriends in that period.
There were. She was that girlfriend, yeah. And she went back to Michigan. And
she's also from Michigan.
She is from Michigan. And I took a job as a groom with some high-end show horses. just to do something.
And where was that?
This was in Florida.
Okay.
I mean, here I was, 5 years of college and 2 years of broadcasting, and I'm grooming horses. But it was good. It made me comfortable.
And you were back in something that was familiar to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Were you still in dialogue with your parents at this point?
Yeah, they had moved their business to California. I was.
This is your mom and, of course, your stepdad.
Yeah, they moved to Palos Verdes and had a company out there.
Okay, and you eventually made your way out there too, right?
I did. I made my way through Taos and through Estes Park. And, the thing was, I think the Lord obviously was leading me and trying to get through to my life. And there were periods where there'd be a knocking from somebody or something. I'd reject Levi. But he gave me all the dreams of my heart. Just little things like, it may sound silly to you, but I pulled into Estes Park, Colorado. I'd never seen a mountain in my life.
Wow.
And it was a foggy day when I hitchhiked in. And then the next morning it cleared up. And if you've never seen a 14,000-foot mountain, I've been to Boyne Mountain in Michigan, which is like vertical drop of 700 feet. When you see Long's Peak, it's like you're in heaven.
Wow.
And so I was in this gorgeous town, and I got a job at the radio station, being on the air, and the manager let me live in his house, an A-frame, and he had a sheepdog. Well, that was like, no one knew that was one of the things I always wanted, was a sheepdog.
You wanted a sheepdog.
And he's got Abby the sheepdog, and I'm living in an A-frame in Colorado. I'm like, and still.
Yeah. Still an emptiness.
Initially, you're like, wow, this is great. But then you start thinking through what's, you're going through the motions of what it's going to be like. And you're like, oh, wow, this is not it either.
Yeah.
If I do 10 years of this, 20 years, I could play this out.
Right.
I see my life passing.
I was in the islands, and I went to Colorado, and I'm like, it's like, where am I going to go? So the next thing was Hawaii. Hawaii's got to be the answer.
So you're playing Not It, really. It's what you're playing. Not it.
Yeah.
So how did Hawaii come on your radar?
Just because,
Which, by the way, I find it interesting just even to know how mountains figured in, because my life has figured in so prominently with Colorado mountains.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see kind of the origin of that. And here I sit in Montana, right? So
You grew up walking with a sheepdog.
So I grew up with a sheepdog. We can get to Sheena later, but why Hawaii?
Just paradise.
Okay.
I was looking for paradise.
Still searching.
Looking for paradise on earth, and whether it was euphoria, relationally or drug-wise, I was looking for, that place.
And you just went by yourself.
I did.
And you were going to save the whales?
I was going to work for Greenpeace and go up in the Zodiac boats between the Russian whalers, which would have been a very bad idea.
Yeah. I've been with you on a boat. I don't know how that would have all ended.
Badly.
That's ambitious, So, but was that a cause that you could feel like you attach yourself to?
The green movement now is nothing new. It was Greenpeace back then that I was involved with. There was the Earth Day came to being in my college days, the Sierra Club. I mean, this is not a new thing.
Yeah.
People are chaining themselves to redwoods. And
John Muir back in the day, right? The Teddy Roosevelt era.
So trying to say, the answer, ultimately I realized saving the planet's not the answer. Saving myself is the answer.
Wow.
Okay.
The whales are on their own.
The whales are going to
save themselves.
They're going to have to just deal with their own fight for a little while.
Figure it out.
Chip Lusko needs to figure. No middle name.
Nope.
We didn't talk about that.
Yeah,
Why did you not select a middle name?
It just didn't need one.
You're like Bono and Madonna and Cher.
Yeah, I mean, it's
fluffy.
It's bulky.
Chip Lusko. No middle name. Just shed it.
If people don't believe it, that's my legal on my whole.
I know.
name.
I've always loved that you don't have a middle name.
Me too.
It's very nice. Yeah. It's got a nice aesthetic to it too.
Efficient.
Yeah. Right.
So you're in Hawaii. You're like sleeping on the beach, right?
Because you didn't have a house, right?
No, I could have rented something. Back then you could do that. Back then in Hawaii,
People still do it now in Hawaii, believe it or not. There are tent cities all over the place. Yeah.
That may be, but not in Honolulu. But anyhow, I was in Maui. And I lived where now the Ritz-Carlton is built. It was a nice beach.
Kapalua.
Yeah, so I had a tent out there. And back then, and I didn't have a vehicle at the time, but you couldn't hitchhike with your thumb. You could stand by the side of the road and people could stop and pick you up.
If they felt like it.
If they felt like it. And back then they did. Yeah, it's a different thing.
Yeah.
Serial killers weren't really a thing at that time.
They probably,
so much.
It was probably more underground. I'm sure
right.
serial killers has always been a thing, Jack the Ripper, but it wasn't like often happening.
Right. So I got a job at the radio station. That's what you do. KMVI in Wailuku. A buddy of mine was running it who I knew from Michigan State. And, thought, this is it. I've got it. Just said, but I'll tell you at this point, I was psychologically and spiritually so on the edge, I couldn't even do drugs. I was high. I tried to do them, and it almost took me into the wrong place. I had one experience with LSD where I went and I couldn't get back. I knew there are trips you can go on that you can't get back from.
Oh, wow.
Some people stay fried forever.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was at that point, and that when you look down and see the hair growing out of your arms and your friend's face melting, you know it's not going to be a good night.
It's a bad trip.
But I think the Lord sobered me up. I'll never forget the moment. I mean, I was so gone. Things were moving everywhere. I landed in the back of a van a friend was driving. I mean, I was there tripping, and I sobered up like in a second.
Wow.
God, I think God just brought me back from the edge of insanity.
Yeah.
And for his own purposes.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have overdosed. Anything could happen.
I was gone. I mean, I've been high. I've done a lot of different hallucinogenics, unfortunately. And that one scared me. I never did it again.
Wow.
Ever.
Wow.
No, I knew.
Scared you straight.
Yeah, I mean, I had friends who were fried. Like you say, fried. They weren't always, insane, but they were fried. They had just done
some things.
Yeah.
So then tell us about how God
So at this
reached
point,
you.
you wanted to look into religion, right?
Yeah, at this point, in that green van, Levi, I had probably had 100 books. I had Zen, I had Alan Watts, I had Siddhartha, I had Hermann Hesse, everything.
Wow.
Someone's got to have an answer.
Right. And I was reading, I just sat by the beach and just read all this stuff and try to meditate. I was terrible at meditating.
You're bad hippie because you like cleanliness. You're bad at meditating because you don't like to sit still for very long.
ADD, like ADD as some people disabled do. And
I actually technically
I don't
do
have
too.
ADD. I have ADHD.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But so I had this library. I was looking.
Yeah.
And it's like itching ears. That's what the Bible talks about. And I had them. Well, by the time I got to Hawaii, I was down to 2 books. I had the Baba Ram Das, which is kind of a civilized Buddhism and commercialized Buddhism, really. And I had the Bible. I'd gotten down to 2.
Wow.
And so I was searching. Here's what I did. And I haven't talked about it. You probably haven't told you this story. I went from island to island. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to walk around the island, and every time I find an open church, I'm going to go in and read whatever passage is open on the pulpit, and that's going to be God's word for me.
Because they would have pulpit Bibles.
Back then. And the churches were open during the day.
Yeah.
And I go and read it. That'd be God's word for me. Well, that's a very bad, exegesis plan.
At least you're going in the right direction.
Right. So I did that I did that on Kona, which is, the big island. I went around the whole thing. And
how many churches do you think you went in?
Probably a couple dozen.
Wow.
And they weren't all open.
Yeah.
They didn't all have pulpit.
Did you ever go and try to get in and you couldn't get in?
Yeah, sometimes. So as you know, I ended up in Molokai, which is not a tourist island, but I was doing my trip, and Molokai is an anti-tourist island for the most part. They've kept it pretty Hawaiian. And so some locals pulled up to me as I was hiking around and said, "Hey, Haole, get off our island," And I'm like, I'm by myself at sunset, and so I couldn't fly out that night. So I went and found what I thought was like a park house in a city park, and crawled under the lanai and slept there because I was concerned, about what might happen. Well, I woke up in the morning and I found out I was at Father Damien's leper colony. It was actually his house.
Wow.
I was sleeping under. And it didn't snap to me until I got saved a few weeks later that it's ironic. I sought refuge in a leper colony.
And were there actually people with leprosy there?
No, not there anymore. That was just a preserve.
But at some point in history.
That's where it was.
Wow.
Interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So then
did you find any good verses? Any of those Bible pages? I'm going to try to think through where to leave my Bible lying around,
Yeah. There's a lot of stories there. But so I ended up, you get to I was becoming desperate.
Yeah.
I was thinking of going to Tahiti now, just going,
Gosh.
And
one more leg.
Right. Just go somewhere. And so one night in Lahaina, it was a Friday night in Lahaina, and there was as you come out of Lahaina going towards Kaanapali, there's a church on the right that's there to this day. It has a big sign that says, Jesus coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you listen to the Eagles song, The Last Resort, they sing about that church.
Wow.
That the missionaries came to do good and did well. But, and across from it at that time, it's not there any longer, was a Buddhist temple. Well, Friday nights are kind of sacred in Buddhist land. Sometimes they have their festivals. And that night, literally, this little church had a outreach going on, and the Buddhist temple had a festival. And between 5 and 7, before they started, I literally flip-flopped back and forth across that road.
Which one do I go to?
East or west? I mean, do I go to Buddhism or do I go to Christianity? Buddhism.
Wow.
So,
Jesus or Buddha?
Yeah. It was literally like that. I was being torn. And now I know it was spiritual warfare, but so I ended up in the church. And I took my flip-flops off at the door, and the pastor rebuked me because he didn't like the Buddhist custom. So I had to put them back on.
He wants you to wear your shoes.
Yeah, wear my shoes.
Shoes welcome.
Right. So I went in and sat down in the back row.
Maybe he saw your feet were dirty.
My feet were not dirty.
Oh, that's right. You're a clean hippie.
Right.
Clean hippie.
So
What, were you wearing a shirt?
Yeah, I was
Because you had real long hair at that point, a beard,
fairly
right?
long hair. Yeah, I had.
How long?
I've seen
I mean,
pictures.
down to my shoulders.
You're pretty
But
wild.
it wasn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I sat in the back and I was kind of, cynical. Okay. And to wait for the people that came, well, nobody came. I mean, nobody came but me, this place. And this is amazing.
I've had services go badly, but nothing like this. This is every pastor's worst
No,
nightmare.
I feared that when I
Only
became a
one
pastor.
dirty hippie. Clean hippie.
Right. And
One clean
and
hippie.
so I sat in the back, and then so the service started, and it was him and his wife, and she's leading worship, and I'm not making this up. She led worship on a trombone. She pulls the trombone out and goes into these hymns. And so,
So no singing, just music.
Pastor's wife, Jennie.
well, I'm sure the
Think
pastor
about
was
it.
singing.
Trombone.
Yeah.
I'm sure the pastor was singing. Like hymns?
Yeah, it was like him. I mean, I don't remember all of it now, but I remember
And how old are you at this point?
I was probably 27.
Okay.
Yeah, I was 27. And so I thought, but I didn't flee. I was tempted by that, I'm just going to stick this out. And it was a full-blown Pentecostal, which I mean, not just Pentecostal, I mean, charismatic, you name it.
Pretty wild.
Well,
Just the two of them, though.
Just the two of them and me. And
And you're sitting in the back.
in the back, the very back row. And to his credit, he gave the complete service. Went through, I'm not sure I would.
Wow.
He gave a complete message. and
From
then
the pulpit.
From the pulpit. And then he gave an altar call.
Did he ever look at you, or was
Yeah, I
he
mean,
just kind of looking out in the
was
room?
he
I don't
standing,
really
standing in the
remember.
crowd?
I just remember, it started breaking through to me.
Wow.
What did he preach about?
I have no idea. I remember he talked about sin and salvation, and if you want to, anybody here wants to come forward tonight.
Anybody
Well, yeah,
here
I kinda
wants
made
to
that
come
up. Yeah.
forward tonight?
Is
So,
there
yeah.
anybody here?
Right, anybody.
Anybody
So,
else?
yeah.
Anybody else want to come? But he gave an altar call.
The buses will wait.
He actually called you to come
He
forward
did.
if you wanted to give your life to Jesus.
I went down the aisle and he prayed with me.
Wow.
And what did you feel in that moment?
I felt relief at that moment, but the real relief came. They said, if you're sincere, come back Sunday. And I went to church again, and there were just a few people there because they were on outreach on a different island. And he said, "We're going to baptize you in the ocean today." Well, all right. I mean, fine. So little did I know he meant going down. I forget. It's the big beach right off Lahaina. I mean, just packed on a Sunday with tourists. And it was my own.
Kaanapali?
No, it wasn't as far as Kaanapali, but I've looked at it, but I forget the name. But it was my own little old brother wear out thou moment because he put me in a white robe, and he's wearing a white robe. And we marched into the surf in front of hundreds and hundreds.
People just sunbathing.
Right. And but we get out there, and then he really lowered the boom on me as a Pentecostal. He goes, "Look, if you're really sincere in your salvation, you'll come out of the water speaking in tongues." Now, I'd never even heard that phrase.
Wow.
You didn't know you have any concept for
No
that.
concept.
So you're like, perfect. Just one question.
What
What
is-
does that mean?
No.
How exactly would one go about doing such a thing?
Right.
Is that
So-
what you were thinking?
I was dumbfounded, Levi. I mean, it's all new. I'm coming from, rock and roll, and I'm out this guy and this place. And
I was here to save the whales. This is a
Right.
new development.
It's gone south on me. So,
But you wanted to-
But I was sincere.
Yeah.
I had made a decision, this is, okay, fine. And he baptized me, and nothing. And he was really disappointed.
Aww.
So he gave me 0
no points. You get
no Bible, no nothing. He gave me a bag of mangoes.
Well, that's nice.
And sent me on my way. But as we drove, I'll tell you, this is where the real God confirmed it in my mind. He was driving a white Jeep Wagoneer, and I was sitting, his wife was here, and I was sitting in the middle of the back. And we're driving home, he's silent. Because it wasn't that far, but he was just silent. And I looked in the rearview mirror, and I've never had a physical manifestation ever since then. But I looked in that rearview mirror, and my face was glowing. Wow. I've been forgiven of sin. God, it wasn't that I was looking like but I could just look at my face, and I'm like, wow, this really happened.
Wow.
And no matter what he said or thought, I mean, God was confirming, okay, you're forgiven.
Wow.
That was cool.
You were born again.
I was born again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how different everything, I mean, I've been back, that church still exists, to stand there and see it and to know like how much of a journey it was leading up to that moment and how much God's done in your life and, you know, in the world, how different. I mean, I don't think I would be here, or we would be in this moment had it not been for that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm thankful for him. You know, I went back to that church a few years ago, and he's passed on, but another guy's taking, and this is almost, you can't make this up. It was a Sunday night. I went back with Larissa, my wife, and I said, you know what, I'm going to go in. And I went in there, and the guy was preaching. One person.
Oh, stop. Besides you.
Besides me. One person sitting there. He was drugged up, and I got to pray with him.
With the guy.
After I stayed for the service. I don't know if he came to Christ, but it was like, okay, that's almost.
Wow.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful.
Well, and Maui's become a special place for us because when we were getting married, you said, I will pay for the place that you guys go on your honeymoon if you let me pick.
You said, I'll pay for your whole honeymoon. Good news. Bad news, you have no say so in anything that goes. So we're like, are we going to Tulsa? Are we going to, you know, we had no idea, but you sent us to Maui.
I did okay.
Yes.
No, it was a beautiful trip.
It was amazing.
And to get to go there, you did ask us to visit that church, which we were so happy to do and to see there. What a journey. What a life. So what do you remember about, you know, how did you tell your parents you're a Christian? Like what, you know, did you?
Oh, I sure did. I mean, I don't go halfway, you know. When I was all in.
Yeah.
So I went back to visit them, and they had come to see me in Maui at my worst. I mean, I was in my confused spiritual condition. And back in those days, Hare Krishnas used to be all over the airport.
Zealots, right?
Yeah, they'd be standing everywhere, you know, where they're selling their books and whatnot.
Like you see in Airplane, the movie.
Right. And so I had preached some weird concoction to both my parents. I mean, strange stuff, combination of, you know. And I remember my dad saying he wanted to, on the way home, he wanted to push a Hare Krishna down the stairs.
My gosh.
But so I went back to see them and led them both to Christ.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Led them both to, and my sister, and baptized all three of them in our pool.
Wow.
No vacuum cleaners needed.
Nope.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. So they said, look, if anything you were so screwed up.
Yeah.
If something's made you this, we want to try this.
Wow.
So they did.
And it wasn't too long after that your dad, as you mentioned a moment ago, got murdered, right?
Yeah. And before that, though, my mom, she was only 43 or 44, got the worst kind of brain cancer.
Oh.
And that's what brought me back from Hawaii. I was in a Calvary ministry over in Honolulu, Shiloh, and she got 12 months to live, a death sentence. And so, yeah, and she died very difficult death.
Gosh.
But she was saved.
Sorry.
I mean,
wow.
I'm just grateful.
Yeah, that must have been a really challenging period.
Yeah, I'd never really been around death much. I had people die in my family. And so it was really hard to watch my mom. We were very close.
Yeah.
And so after that, as you say, my dad's partner murdered him.
Oh.
After.
Okay, well, okay. So Nancy Dawn, what are your final memories of her? What's the, you know, obviously there's a lot and painful and as much as you're willing to share, but what was your final significant moment with her that you can recall?
You know, it would be in the hospital, Levi, and she was fading in and out of consciousness and pretty heavily drugged up. But, you know, I was able to read the Bible to her. And I mean, I was zealous. So maybe I don't think too much, but I mean, that's all I cared about.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you knew was going to give her peace. And
yeah, I mean, but I didn't care about anything else. But learning the Bible, preaching the Bible, and we got involved with the Calvary Chapel in South Bay, and I mean, that's just how I am.
Yeah.
When she found out she was dying, like, was there ever any kind of moment like where she wanted to communicate like final thoughts to you, or is there anything like had it as her last heart, like to kind of really want to communicate?
Not really, because unfortunately, these days people are so heavily medicated. I mean, she was on Percocets and everything possible just to mitigate the pain.
Yeah.
I think it prevents people a lot of times from communicating clearly in those moments.
Yeah.
You didn't get like a real final moment with her, or even in the lead up to it throughout the treatments?
No, we did. I mean, we talked a lot about heaven. I mean, I teach my mom Bible studies was amazing. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, granted, but I was beyond the verse in the pulpit, thing. So I was able to go through, 1 John with her, just the principles, and she started watching a lot of Christian TV, which was for better or for worse.
But as you mentioned, you and your mom had a bond all the way to the end.
We really did. We never had a falling out.
And what was that for you as a person, as a development in your, becoming a man, having her as that figure taken away?
It was horrible. I mean, her funeral was very difficult, and everything about it. I mean, you don't realize what a part you may know, but you don't really the impact of it. You don't know what you got till it's gone.
Yeah.
The old song goes.
Yeah.
So, and did your relationship with her ex-husband, you called him Dad, obviously?
Yeah, George. Yeah, it got better.
Did you call him George? Did you call him Dad?
I called him Dad.
Okay.
That breakthrough was very difficult early on. To say Dad the first time was like pulling it out. Do you
remember the first time you said Dad?
I do.
What?
It was just difficult. I remember it was just difficult. It just was. It was hard.
Yeah. But your friendship with him, you guys bonded?
Yes.
After your mom went to heaven?
Yes.
And did you guys start having a friendship and a relationship and hanging out?
Yeah, no. I got him to church, and I was helping him with his business. And so, our relationship was better in that year. He lived for a year afterwards than ever.
Wow.
So then 1 year later, he's murdered by his business partner, you said, and you were working for him at the time.
No, I fortunately had left. I'd come home when my mom was sick to help in the business. And then once she passed away, he came in and I went to work in Hollywood at a radio station. And fortunately, because that day when he came in to kill my dad, there was another salesman just happened to be there, and he killed him as well, totally innocent, unrelated. Had I been there, there's a possibility he would have killed me.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And the business partner suspected your dad of having been involved
with his wife.
And so it was a crime of passion,
right?
Without knowing whether it was true or not true. That was. And then
oh my gosh.
You were involved in the trial, right?
It was pretty horrific. I mean, that was so shocking.
Because you found him?
No, I pulled in. I just stopped in after work, coming back from Hollywood, and stopped in Torrance at his business, and there was police tape everywhere, and police cars. And I man. And so they let me in. It was pretty.
You were at the crime scene before he was taken away.
He was being taken away. I mean, I saw the evidence, but it was awful. So that made me kind of want to leave Los Angeles, and that played the part of my going to Colorado for Levi, to take a general managing for a station in Colorado. I just wanted to get out of that city.
Yeah.
I
mean, your mom, then that.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
It made me want to get out, and so I did move to Colorado, and I had to fly back to testify. The DA flew me back to testify at the trial, and so that was like out of a script. Seeing what's going on here, a trial about your dad's murder, it's unimaginable.
Yeah.
And you kind of became involved in taking care of your little sister.
I did. My sister Julie.
How old would she have been?
She'd have been 12.
Oh.
Yeah, she lost both their parents before she was a teenager, and fortunately, she is walking with the Lord now after many off ramps. But I thank God for that.
Yeah.
Did you become her custodian?
I didn't. I was her second. My dad's brother, who lived on the East Coast and worked for Ford, was the executor. I was second co-executor.
Or guardian, I guess they would say.
A guardian. I would have been her guardian if something happened.
But you became more than a brother.
Yeah, definitely.
And my memory is you've always been kind of part father, part brother,
Right.
more uncle to her, right?
Well, I mean, I was 14 when she was born. So, I was like an uncle going in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. And you mentioned working for a radio station, that's secular radio in LA.
No, it was Christian.
Oh, it was Christian radio
It was Christian.
station.
Yeah, it was a Kiss AM. Kiss FM was a huge rock station, but they took and made one station Christian. And then I got hired by the Mormons. They owned a huge chain of stations called Bonneville, and they turned one of their stations full music. They were one of the first all music stations in the country.
Wow.
And they let it be totally preach the gospel.
Wow.
And I went to work there, and we debuted Bob Dylan's album. I was doing promotions, music, and sales, and I got to pick "Slow Train Comin'" to be. You got to serve somebody. Came off the album.
Wow.
"Slow Train Comin'."
That's
to be
amazing.
played in L.A. I mean, it was monumental.
That was his big Christian face.
That was his the 3-album phase. He was going to the Vineyard.
Serve somebody.
Yeah, it's a great album.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so what year was it when you moved to Colorado? Because was Levi born soon after that, or was
It
that?
must have been like 81.
No, because you weren't
Okay.
married when you moved to Colorado.
I was.
Oh, you were married.
I was married, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Because Becca was born in California.
Becca was born in California.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, my older sister's married in Colorado. You moved in
Born.
California. You moved to Colorado, and that was all media as well.
Mhm.
And then you were going to start a church at some point?
Yep.
Or was that on the radar
no,
for
it was
you?
on the radar, yeah. I helped start a church in Calvary Chapel. The Calvary movement was blowing up at that time. I mean, really blowing up. It was fun. It was
Blowing
different.
up in a good way.
In a very good way. I mean, they were exploding. It was
be careful to use very clarifying terms. Yes.
Those were very exciting days in the church. I mean, it was just spontaneous. People were coming out of the hippie movement and getting saved. Raul and Mike and Greg and Skip, and got to know all these guys at that level. And it was just exciting.
Did your faith waver during the death of your parents?
Not one bit.
It emboldened you.
Not one bit.
It strengthened you.
You know, I'm pretty boring, Levi, so I've never really had a test of my faith. I figured, I'm not giving God a chance to change his mind.
Well, and you've been through a lot, so that's saying
and you saw a lot of what else there is to be offered in this world.
you literally saw everything.
You grew up in affluence. I
Yeah.
mean, you told me as a kid your parents would only buy McDonald's for your dogs.
That's accurate.
They wouldn't feed them to people.
No.
So you guys had high standards. So you obviously saw life with money. You saw life in sex and drugs and rock and roll and
And
whales
also
and,
the counterfeit religions. I checked them all out.
right, as you mentioned, all your
So
books.
there was nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
You met Jesus. He
did.
changed your life,
He
and
did.
you decided we're in this thing.
I'm all in.
Yeah. And I mean, goodness, how the world's been changed by that moment, that decision, that crossroads in Lahaina.
Yeah.
In so many different ways. And starting, but you've always kind of wanted to combine your use of media and knowledge of media, going back to college days, your understanding that when someone gets on a microphone and communicates, there's something that can happen.
There's
from
power
that.
to that.
There's power to that.
Yep.
Communication in many different ways. And that always informed. So obviously you've done lots of different things in church world, started Bible study, started churches. But from my upbringing, I grew up in a radio station because you were always owning a radio station, starting a radio station, helping a church start a radio station, or helping a church get their teachings on the radio station. Because you have figured out part of what God put you on this earth for is to help connect people to microphones, message to places, and getting communication out.
Right. The Lord showed me early on that scripture that says the word of God doesn't come back void. It accomplishes the purpose to which it was sent. And I just figured, I've done a lot of things, stupid things in my life, wrong things. I don't want to screw this up. I burned so many bridges to hurt people and, counterproductive things to myself. I didn't want to screw up my Christian walk.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I can get the word out there. Then it's your problem, God.
Yeah.
So I just said, that's been my credo, to just get the word of God out by whatever means, and then the Lord will superintend it.
And God has really used you tremendously. I mean, even this right
For
now, what we're
years
doing
and years.
has its roots in that. For me, growing up in radio stations that you were working at or working on, TV stations you were working at or working on, but then also in churches, and in the time when you would be doing funerals and weddings as a pastor too, because you would kind of do both. I mean, you would leave me, in the waiting area of a funeral home while you were doing a funeral real quick, or like that was my memory.
Well, the best one was leaving you in Las Vegas.
Yeah. You left me in
that explains a
multiple
lot.
places. You left me in Washington, D.C., in the airport of Reagan, because you lost your wallet in the rental car and you had to go back and get on the shuttle. And I was just standing in the terminal as an 8th grader. There's been a couple times when you've lost track of me. But look, that's not the point. We're not here for that, baby.
That's right.
But I think it's amazing to see God connect all those dots. And you always want to use, I think about you as a freshman in college, getting that job at that campus radio station. And my love of and understanding of communication has informed as we've led in the church. And then, of course, even now with the podcast and all those things, just seeing God connect those dots is pretty beautiful.
Yeah, he still is. I'm gonna finish strong. There's no retirement for me. Maybe a change of pastures, but I'm not being put out to pasture.
I will retire and let you know how it is. So if you can keep working, I will let you. I will write you from the beach.
I said I could gear it down.
You have drive, which is amazing. You just turned 70.
True.
We're of course compressing a lot, and thank you for being so generous to open up about all this.
Yes.
Between that moment and my upbringing in Colorado and that phase of life and now, there's been some pretty significant low points too.
There has.
Obviously you're not married to my mom. That was a low point. Your heart attack 11 years ago.
11 years ago.
This month,
This
at
month.
the moment we're recording this.
Right.
There's been some challenges, some difficulties. You turned 70 this year with really a new lease on life, really, right?
Yeah.
Any of that you want to kind of go into?
Sure. Sure. The divorce was the biggest failure. I take responsibility for it. I was a man of, I know the reasons for it. They aren't excuses for it. I take responsibility.
Oh, well, goodness gracious. I didn't mean like that. I didn't mean blame. When you and my mom were together pre-knowing Jesus,
right.
There was wild stuff. You guys obviously both have so much going on in your lives and coming together. Marriage is challenging enough with a level foundation.
Yeah.
Obviously, you guys both had experienced so much.
No, if I had to point at one thing, Levi, it'd be that. We huge infidelity on both ends and years of pain and hurt before we ever made it to the altar. And probably if we'd had decent premarital counseling, they would have said, don't do this.
Mm-hmm.
We did.
Because it's a pretty amazing story, though. You come to know Jesus.
Right.
She similarly came to know Jesus
Simultaneously.
You guys both parted ways as hippies.
Right.
Living in Bahamas, but both came to know Jesus. Hers through like a campus crusade thing.
Yeah, something like that. We thought she was in Canada and I was in Hawaii. So I thought it was some romantic, this is a great story and finding the love of my life type thing. And we, again, the pastor who married us, the counseling we got, we went to Mexican food one night and just ate food and said, you're getting married.
Yeah.
There was zero premarital counseling.
Wow.
Less than zero.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, that probably contributed to it. And even if we'd gone through with it to prepare us for, dealing with all those wounds, we just had ignored them for years.
But you found it is pretty, as I do, pretty unmistakably God that you both had gone out, met Jesus, kind of mysteriously reconnected.
Right.
And you're both, I love Jesus. I do too. Well, of course we should get married.
No, our letters crossed in the mail. Literally,
Gotcha.
Her telling of being saved.
Wow.
And so, I don't recommend that kind of premarital approach.
You just got married despite all the trauma, all the wounds, all the issues, and thought we'd just sort all that out.
We're both still in the honeymoon phase of our Christianity.
Right.
Sure.
And we just thought, we just get everything's gonna be happy. This is amazing.
It'll fix it all.
It's like having a baby to fix a bad marriage. Yeah.
Right. And we had a good attraction, but that wasn't enough. And we had so much baggage that it took me underwater.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But what's so beautiful is that you had 5 kids who they're all changing the world. And it's like, it's just the way God can move and do something beautiful. And even though things didn't work out, like, I don't know, it's just God does what he does. And to see your children. And I think,
well, had you not gone back with my mom, obviously, I'm pretty grateful.
well,
Here I am, Yeah.
But another thing,
as well as my siblings.
Yeah, but another thing too is that you have been such a good dad and grandpa, but like you didn't necessarily have anyone to show you like what that looked like to be a godly. I mean, you were blazing trails. Like you didn't have someone showing you, this is what a godly dad does. This is what someone does to love their wife or kids. Like, but you just did. What was that like? Did you just think like what's the best in the situation, or did you really go after what the Bible says, or like how did you lead the way in being such a good father?
Well, Jennie, I've given that a lot of thought. I mean, 5 kids is a handful, as you know, and I
think you have more than 5 too. You got siblings who count you as a dad too.
Yes,
spouses. Rather.
Spouses.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, one of my nightmares if I had screwed these kids up. Seriously.
Yeah.
So I've given it a lot of thought. I determined when Becca and Levi and the first 3 were born that whatever I did, I can't screw this up. Yeah. So I think we underestimate the paternal instincts are built into the human heart.
Wow.
Look, I mean, in the animal kingdom, you see how the birds take. I mean, it's just natural.
Yeah.
Building
a nest.
Where's the worst place to be in Montana? Between a mother bear and her cubs.
Right.
Why?
Or to be a baby moose. Yeah.
Thank you for that. But because God has built that into the parents. And the Bible calls it natural affection.
Wow.
And so if a sparrow has it, how much more do we have? I started thinking about that. We have instincts. Now, we live in a much more complicated time than a lot of parents did. So, there's Jesus and there's James Dobson. That's the 2 things that really got me through.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, because you've been a really good dad.
Yeah.
You really have. I mean that.
I tried to be.
No, present. There.
Look, my dad, my stepdad, as I say, sports was really important to me. They went to, I think, and I was in hundreds of different events. They went to one my entire life. So I made my mind up with you guys. I would be at practices, whatever it took. Yeah. I'd be at T-ball. I've been to T-ball. I've been to ballet. You name it, I've been to it. Yeah. I would be, at least I could show up.
Yeah.
And supportive.
And you've done that with your kids, but you've also done that with your grandkids, and you've done that with your kids' spouses, which I am a recipient of you just showing up and being there. And
you never know. You just never know.
I know Jennie looks at you like a father as well.
Yes. Well, and you paved the way, you blasted the trails, blazed the trails, and Levi's a wonderful dad and an amazing husband. And so even though maybe you were kind of like doing something new, like you were able to kind of blaze a trail for your sons to follow after you, and not even your sons, like young men who have watched you and seen you live a life of faithfulness. And so I'm so thankful for how you have led the way. So I'm literally a recipient of the fruit of that through Levi.
I think for all fathers out there listening, that, that as Scripture has come to life in my heart, it says we'll move from glory to glory. And if you really examine that, it talks about generation to generation. That the generations, we should be leaving a legacy. And, I didn't have a Christian legacy. So I had to kind of make one, build one, whatever, out of whole cloth. But I expect all my family to have a better impact than I do.
Yeah.
That's glory to glory.
Yeah. Love that.
And, as I see it, looking back, even the challenges of our family, our nuclear family kind of dissolving in that time, you didn't have a whole lot of tools that were given to you or even example or training from, you mentioned a minute ago, even your mom having her kind of defense mechanism of, wall down, armor down, and just kind of, raised by a, your natural father, no relationship with, all of that, that would put you at a place of just being set up for failure in relationships. And to see you have to navigate that, has been a lot. And, I just commend you for how well you've done with what you were handed. There's a lot of people who have a lot better biological setup and situation who do a lot worse, So I didn't mean that to be like a backhanded compliment, but I'm just trying to say, like, I hope, knowing what I know about you, I know there's a sense of like, even your first response was, I take the blame, and I know that's kind of your tendency, but just to even see yourself as saying like, hey, like, you gotta have compassion on what you were up against and that you didn't do much, 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 much worse, and anything you did or didn't do, that you could have some compassion on yourself, I would hope that.
I'll try.
There you go. The heart event. I mean, you're in Miami, you're in a hotel room, you have a heart attack. I know you call it a heart event, but it ended with an open heart surgery and triple bypass.
It was a big event. You like to throw big events, so you made it big.
It was a big event.
You didn't know you were having a heart attack, though.
I never had a moment of warning.
Yeah.
I was alone. I got up, you know the story, but it was startling.
I would think so.
It ruined my whole day.
Uh-huh. You went to the front desk of the hotel with your sunglasses in your hand.
Yeah.
And you said,
"Is there a doctor in the house?" I don't know, Bugs Bunny. I don't know where I ever heard that phrase.
Is there a doctor in the house?
Hey, Doc, what's up?
3 a.m.
Right. Yeah, it was 4:30.
And what does the front desk person do?
Oh, they could pick up the phone immediately, call 911.
Because you told her, I think I'm having a heart attack.
No, I didn't.
What'd you say?
I feel.
There's something wrong.
Yeah.
They can't feel this arm.
Yeah.
But one of the symptoms of a heart attack is denial, right?
Right.
So you're denying this can't be happening.
Yeah, I took a shower first because that normally makes everything better.
The shower's going to help.
Right. And I was trying to go work out. That was my goal.
I'm going to get to the gym.
Right.
With your sunglasses at 4:30 in the morning.
And
flip-flops again.
Flops. And then I realized I was in trouble.
Yeah.
And so the ambulance pulled up and but I just walked down to the ambulance with the guy. I said, let's go down there. I don't want any stretcher.
Wow.
So I crawled in the back end of the ambulance. And then
this is when you texted me, I think I'm having a heart attack. I love you.
It got pretty serious, yeah.
Yeah. Whew. Ends with a good ending, of course. Open heart surgery.
It was a nightmare. I mean, it was an inner city type hospital. Fortunately, it turned out to be a good hospital, but it's where they sent all the
gunshots and everything. Yeah.
Right in the middle of downtown Miami.
Wow.
And so, it was a nightmare for me going in there. What's going to happen? The ER was just full.
Wow.
And these guys, I've been joking a little bit with the guys in the ambulance. I said, could you at least turn the siren on? They didn't, because there was no traffic at that time in the morning. I was like, really? And so,
come on, just for me.
My one chance.
My last wish.
And
blast through some lights.
My fear was they say, hey, put the white guy out in the hallway. And that's exactly what happened. Because they were so busy. She says, put him out there. And the guy, I made a little bit of contact with him. She goes, no. He said, you put him in front. He overruled the nurse, and I think it probably saved my life.
Because you could have died. You were having this heart attack. Yeah. You were like you're 90% occluded.
Right. Yeah,
you could have died in the hallway.
Yeah, I could have. And they got me in immediately and did a stent, and then it was starting to really.
What was going through your mind?
I wish I could have some real heavy. It was just gray, Levi. I wish I had some heavy C.S. Lewis moment or something, but no, I was scared.
Yeah.
And the problem was
alone.
it was 4:30. Yeah, it was 4:30 on the East Coast. So that means it's middle of the night, call you.
I didn't
call
get the
Larissa.
text till like 6 in the morning.
And even Pedro, my buddy who's in Miami, he was at a pastor's conference with Skip in California.
So there's no one around.
No one's answering.
No one's with you.
No one's doing it. So I'm like.
And you're thinking, I'm going to die in this hallway.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, it's so scary.
Horrible.
So I wish I had some big spiritual insight for you.
You just felt lonely and scared, and I'm going to die in this hallway.
Right.
Yeah,
Lord.
my gosh. Thank God you didn't.
I didn't. Nope.
You got the surgery done. That was probably pretty scary. I remember you going in was kind of, a tense moment, obviously, for all of us. It affected me profoundly.
You left that day, right?
That affected me profoundly your near death. I got the text. I got on a friend's plane who drove me to a city to get on a real plane to make it there that night. It's not easy to connect the dots between Montana and anywhere,
especially in those days.
But I got on this little, Cessna plane that took me to this airport to get me to there. And, we were all very, but I had no idea how profoundly it was going to affect me. I had never experienced someone that close to me, outside of the youth pastor who took his life when I was younger. But it was very destabilizing to think about life without you and to think about you dying. And, I remember being very wrecked emotionally. And then, you going in for surgery, we all prayed for you, and so grateful, for the last 11 years that looked like at that moment weren't going to be.
No, they said most people with that artery, they call it the widowmaker. When it goes out, that's the one they had to stent immediately. That's what saved my life when they brought me to the front. I got into the room, and once they went in with a stent, I could breathe.
You felt a difference?
No, it was night and day.
Wow.
Because he said, just wait a minute, you'll be fine. Because they go up through your thigh. I mean, it's amazing. But we should be I'm so grateful for medical science.
Yes.
Before, you're off on an ice floe and, see ya.
Mm-hmm. Wow. What, man, that's so scary. And you had no idea you had any cardiac issues.
No.
Would you get physicals before that?
You were the healthiest person I knew.
No physicals, but you worked out a lot, so you assumed
worked out
you're
a lot,
good.
ate well.
Yeah.
And I remember when the doctor came in the room, I'm sharing medical data now, but you were very irritated. Like, how can this be? I work out all the time. I'm practically a vegetarian, but I eat fish some. And he said, he was kind of he looked up from the chart and said, "Sir, the only thing that can't be cured is your genetics.
Right.
Who your parents are. This came from DNA, somewhere in the family that you had a predisposition to cholesterol, regardless of health and diet, which is." I immediately went home and got a physical and got my panels checked, and sure enough, cholesterol was, and he said, my doctor did, likely that you would be at the same path at 60 as your dad is because of genetics, and so just even the wake up call on that of oh, this is a factor, this is something to, to think about, Interesting.
Yep.
What did it feel like to turn 70? What was your, I'm not trying to get you to be poetic or wax eloquent, but
I don't feel it.
Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, it was a great party we had.
We did have a great party.
It was a fun party.
It was so fun.
Jennie can dance.
Jennie can dance. Well,
that makes one person at this table who can dance.
That's funny. Yeah, I'm really good at watching Jennie dance.
You did some good moves, Levi. No, Levi, it's funny. I mean, I physically, I feel better than ever. I know they say in your mind you're, 40 and in your body, but I'm not as quick as I was, but I feel great. I haven't slipped that much, mentally, I don't think.
Yeah.
No, you're sharp.
So,
you're funny.
I'm boring, but
no,
I feel great. It's a great season to be in.
Yeah.
The grandkids.
What's exciting? There you
go. The grandkids are amazing.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing. Watching Fresh Life grow these 16 years is amazing. I want to stick around. I'm ready to go to heaven. I know it's going to be great, but I want to put it off, not because I want more pleasure in this life. I want more opportunity to serve the Lord. We'll never have it again. So I'm going full throttle for in the time I have left. But I want to see Livy go down the aisle. I want to,
Yeah.
Yes, we do too.
That's beautiful. So it's been a full 70 years. That's a lot. We barely scratched the surface, but that's a lot of things and a lot of places and a lot of different directions and a lot of energy. And so as you kind of look over it all, and you've just had a chance in 88 minutes to kind of just talk through your whole life, what do you have ringing in your heart in the future with whatever time God gives you on this earth until you go to be with Jesus and your mom and Linya and,
Well, yesterday you were talking when you were teaching out of Jeremiah, and you look back on your life and you said there are a couple of things you wish. So I've given that some thought. Now it's you can't go back.
Right.
I can, I'm not going to make those mistakes going forward. But what I can do is help my grandchildren avoid those mistakes. So, your kids, I'm not worried about at all. There are others.
Have you met Lennox? I'm just wanting to make sure we are all talking about the same.
Oh my God.
And Clover.
Lennox.
Yeah.
Would you trust him?
Yeah. Tell that story. That's very funny.
Well, Levi was trying to give Lennox direction downstairs, and he was supposed to do something. And Lennox was questioning it to me. I don't know this. I need to do this or not. I go, you need to trust your dad. He loves you. And he looks at me. He goes, well, if you were me, would you trust him?
At 4 years old. Oh Lord!
It's not as bad as this morning when you woke up and you said he had wet the bed. I guess, right?
Well, yeah, but that wasn't the issue.
No, but you said, "Can I do something for you?"
He was trying to get clothing on. I said, "Can I help you?" He goes, "You can change my sheets."
You can change my sheets, and you're not worried about him at 4. He's gonna be in trouble, I tell you.
He's a character.
Oh my God!
But no, my point is, so I've developed Papa Chip's pearls of wisdom for some of my grandkids to try to help them in a very basic way avoid the mistakes that really, almost wrecked my life.
Take the lessons you've learned and codify them.
Try to, embed them in their life. So.
It's amazing.
Well, I hope you're writing them down because those need to be preserved.
I put them in their Bibles. Yeah.
But the view from 70, you're excited. You're looking,
Oh yeah. I mean, I've looked back. Like I told you yesterday, I've had a chance to teach in 35 different churches and traveled 40 countries, and it's exciting. God has really given me great opportunities, great favor.
Yeah.
And why stop now?
Yeah.
Amen.
I'm thankful. We're thankful for it. I know, and everyone listening,
you.
has been a wild ride. It's a beautiful story.
Yes.
But your impact on me, your friendship and example and leadership and
I just see how throughout your life God has pursued you and really like bringing you to a place of surrender to Him. And I see that in you also, like you are a pursuer of the people in your life.
Well, let me say this in closing, a couple of things. I'm more excited about God's word than I've ever been. I'm soaking it up I've always been a Bible nerd, but I'm learning, I'm so excited about the word of God every day. And it's a great season, partly because, as you said, like with you and Becca, we're more than family, to really see us become friends and peers, and to have that kind of relationship is really rich.
When did you see that or experience that for the first time?
Wow, Levi. It may have been with you. Our relationship is strong and special and fun, and not boring at all. But we started to level off. When you came up here, I think.
That's hope for some parents, right, out there?
Oh, yeah. Becca, we laugh and have fun, and I talk to almost everybody every day.
Oh,
in some way,
very unique friendship and relationship with each of your kids. Yeah, that's hope to some parents in the trenches. That there's on the horizon friendship with the kids. And
no, I decided whatever it took, I wouldn't let those bridges burn. And it's difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
Not with you, but
there was dicey moments. Yeah.
But we decided, we're not going to let that happen. Yeah. Because I've seen it happen. I talk to guys all the time who aren't speaking to their kids, or vice versa. The kids won't speak to them of nothing, and that is just wow,
worse
that's
than a
so
heart attack, probably.
That's heartbreaking. Yeah, that's not unusual.
Yeah,
wow.
I won't let it happen. Yeah, I'll humble myself. I will.
Well, there's one of the many Papa Chip pearls of wisdom. Well, thank you. We love you. Thanks
or
for
as Lennox would say, Poppy Chip.
Poppy Chip's pearls of wisdom. Right. Well, we could go on for many more minutes.
Thank you, Chip.
We'll wrap it up here, and thank you very much.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Thank you so much for listening. Be sure to swing by levilusko.com and jennielusko.com to see what's going on in our world.
And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And in the meantime, we would love to connect with you on social media.
Jennie and Levi Lusko out.
Access more